Jack.
Levi.
The Book Club from Hell.
So we're very, very pleased today to have Jasper Ceylon on the show, who's just published the Echolalia review, which is a book of poetry with a fantastic story behind it. Correct me on the details, Jasper, but over the past 2 years or so, you've had 47 poems published in 30 poetry publications, and all of these poems were published under a series of personas that were particularly enticing to these poetry journals, and the poems themselves are various shades of absurdity, of hoax. You have ones that seem quite conventionally good, like good poems which will just have bits in foreign languages saying that they're hoaxes. You will have some poems that are so aggressively bad that they come from a place of poetic mastery rather than a place of the lack of artistic talent. The poems themselves are remarkable. So would you be able to introduce yourself, introduce your project in a bit more detail, talk about any other projects that you've got going on, and so on?
Yeah, sure. So thanks for having me. And Echo is in spots aggressively bad, intentionally. Other times it's very subtle. But the first half is the, let's say, literary journal portion. So all those fake poems that I got published under all of those convenient personas, such as Adele Nwankwo, the Nigerian healthcare worker, and B.H. Fine, the, let's say, gender-confused Zionist, and all of this sort of stuff. They make up the first half, and I've arranged it in such a way that it looks exactly like any sort of literary journal you would pick up off the shelf at a bookstore. But then the second half is more of the literary criticism end. So you've got some creative nonfiction pieces, the publication notes for where all the poems got picked up, and then you've got an afterword, like miniature manifesto. And as for why I did it, well, there are a bunch of different reasons we can get into, but beyond that, I'm the EIC now at Per Ube, now that Noah's stepped down. So I'm looking to sort of transform that journal and press into more of a spot for not quite dissident poets and stuff like that, but just ones that want to write contemporary poetry. They're not writing 18th century type stuff, but feel that they don't really have much of a place in the industry right now. And beyond that, I've been published under various names for many years now.
What's the level of prestige of these journals you were getting these poems published in? And for listeners, again, these poems run the gamut from being just flat out fucked. Like there are a bunch of haikus where I think the like even just the number of syllables is all fucked up, and the journals just didn't really seem to bother checking that. All the way to ones that actually seem really, really well written, but are just full of constant references to this is fake, this is fake. How prestigious are these journals you were sending them to, and getting not only accepted, but I think one at least nominated a poem, Shakespeare's Cum Slut, for an award.
So I tried to approach various levels just because I felt like it would be cherry picking if I only chose just trash, like first issue journals.
Strategic highlight control.
You can't go on like Chill Subs and go, oh, this one they just started their operation today. Like they're just desperate for anything. I'll give them my stuff, right? So I sort of avoided like the Paris Review and everything because you have to wait like 9 months for what is almost always a no. And I've worked on the other side of the industry, so I know how editors are, and I know how magazines solicit a lot of their content at that level. I'm like, there's just no fucking way I'm getting in there. Like, you wouldn't believe the type of nepotism that takes place just between editors and all that shit. So, I mean, I did approach a decent amount of ones that had like good reputations, but were not quite, the Paris Review. So the Antigonish in Canada, Plenitude in Canada, those types of ones, I did mix those in, and I did get into some of them. And then other times I'm like, yeah, you know what? Let's just throw some like just indie shitters in there, just like.
You're a generous man like that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I mean, actually, the Shakespeare's Cum Slut one, Antigonish, no, it wasn't that one, but they wanted the other Shakespeare one where I basically just confessed to not being who I am and just making up personas. They're like, wow, we really wanted to publish this, but we just didn't get there fast enough.
Yeah. One of the things that struck me about this book, and why I think it works so well, I mean, for listeners, I really recommend this. The link to it will be in the show notes. I recommend you get a copy, because it is truly funny. There were moments with some of the poems where I was actually laughing out loud. They're fantastic. But it really comes across as work from someone who cares about poetry. Like, you obviously care about poetry and want contemporary poetry to be better. It doesn't come across as resentful or angry, which is I think why it really works, and why it's more than a shit post or you just picking up your toys and leaving.
Yeah.
I think also just the fact that some of these poems are really technically good. You obviously know what you're doing, which just makes it that much funnier.
Yeah. Well, the thing is, like, I didn't want it to seem resentful. I didn't want it to seem spiteful, because then you can just dismiss it, right? It's just, oh, here's a guy who wanted to fuck around with people and, like, embarrass some editors, and then he just wanted to, like, I don't know, go back to writing hyper-traditional stuff, or he just wanted to, like, leave the industry in a bit of a mess. And that's not the case at all. I actually really enjoy poetry. I find it to be, because I've written novels and all these other types of things, it's still my favorite form. Like, when I want to sit down and do something, it's almost always poetry that I start with. I think on an individual line-to-line basis, poets still make up the best writers that we have. Like, I see brilliance in every single literary journal. They're just like little individual lines that no one else would have thought of, and now we have it. So I was just seeing that so many journals were filled with, I mean, quote unquote junk, but it was kind of demoralizing, yeah, because you were having these just absolute stunners mixed in with things like that Dumplings poem I cite and all that sort of stuff. One of the most rancid poems I've ever encountered. Like, and I thought it was such a travesty, frankly, that this was the direction we were headed in. So, yeah, I just wanted to do what I could to kind of right the ship a little bit, and maybe, just maybe, get these editors to think a little bit harder about what they've been doing and what kind of cultural legacy they're leaving.
Yeah, because before recording, I was saying that I'd like to try to read more poetry on the basis of reading this work, and you were recommending picking up poetry journals and saying that you do so whenever you go into a bookstore and so on. Yeah. So I think it is really important for anyone considering picking this up to really know that this is not from a place of hating poetry. It really is from the opposite. And again, it's why it works, why I think any satire ultimately needs to be from someone who knows the object being satirized almost better than anyone else, and needs to be from a place of love in many ways. I find satire falls apart if it's just angry and resentful, which this really isn't.
Yeah, there's a level of mastery involved in that sort of skill with satire that obviously comes across in this particular book.
Yeah. So I do want to get on to Levi and me getting into some of our favourite poems, but I do want to just hear a bit more about the process of writing these and of developing the personas, because the persona lore as well. There's a surprising amount of it. Before we get into that, what was your process for writing these poems? Like, are there particular, say, archetypal poems in contemporary poetry that you just think aren't great, besides Instagram poetry, which you made very, very clear that you were not a fan of in this? And were you trying to imitate those? Are some of these, say, sui generis, they're just not like anything else, but are sufficiently ridiculous that you thought they'd get accepted? How do you set about writing these?
Yeah, so like the personas were definitely meant to be connected to each other, right? And I wanted to highlight how insular the community has become, because I can tell you from being an editor at other magazines and stuff before, like once you're in, you start getting emails to judge contests, to like get into, let's say, things in like the pre-publication state, anthologies and stuff. Like they'll start soliciting stuff from you before the public knows that they have an opportunity to submit for it. Like just things like that. You get awards a lot easier. But
sounds great. How do I do
yeah, so
this sounds like a great system if I can be in on it.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of like the banking system, but just like it's weird. Like if you have an in, like
the cultural banking system.
Yeah. So it's kind of demoralizing if you're on the outside, or if you're on the inside but you don't agree with it and you just have to witness all of this. So yeah, the personas, they are all connected. So like Dirt Hog is related to Otto Fat John, and like all these guys. B.H. Fine is the son of one of the agents at the Mueller and Stein agency. So, and all the sort of submitters here, like half of them are editors at other journals, and like some of them are advertised in the back of the issue and stuff. So I've made it very, very web-like. I wanted there to be connections between every single piece to at least one or two of the other pieces of the book. So that's kind of why I called it Echolalia Review. I went for that sort of echo chamber type aesthetic. As for the formation of the personas, I mean, they're based mostly off of what I saw were the, let's say, trendiest identities for people to have, like the ones I kept coming across. So like Adele being the Nigerian diaspora healthcare worker, you know, and B.H. Fine being the sort of like, yeah, kind of Nepo baby type, in with the agencies type thing, and the indigenous healer one, because they will not question anything you have to say about environmentalism or anything like that if you claim to be indigenous. So like, I wanted each one to represent a different sort of niche that I was seeing from submitters in magazines, and so they could write different types of pieces that I needed to get published. But even like as a joke, I would have them sometimes collaborate, or I would sort of get them to like send in stuff they shouldn't have been sending in. Like Adele got a Holocaust themed poem published. I'm like, how in the fuck did you let Adele write this? Like, what? She has no connection to this at all. But like,
for listeners, Adele the Nigerian, like the probably not Jewish. Wasn't it? No, wasn't it? I think you said in the in the book that it got accepted because Adele said a Jewish co-worker at work told her about it.
Yeah, yeah.
Something to that effect. And that's why she could write a Holocaust-themed poem and get it accepted.
Yeah, so I would do stuff like that. I would, when contacting the editors, like, just to get around, like, some backlash, I'd just say, like, oh, well, you know, yeah, my Jewish coworker, you know, was talking about this, so, like, it should be fine if I do it right. And they'd be like, yeah, we love it, you know, this is so great. I'd be like, all right, like, that's all it takes. So, yeah, there were little workarounds in a couple spots, but beyond that, I mean, they really didn't question any of this.
And didn't question it to the point where, isn't it in the names themselves of these people? I think you said this before we started recording. You were actually just saying they're a fraud, because I think Adele's name basically says that she's a fraud in, I'm not sure which language, but and then Sky Child also it says she is a fraud in her name in several different Indigenous languages.
Yep. Yeah. So for Adele, there was the one poem, the full poem, where basically in plenitude, where I admit that, like, yeah, it would be a lot easier to be published under a fake persona. So, like, wow, people should do that. And, like, I'm ironically just doing that with the poem. But for Claire Brooke Hawksmouth, yeah, the two Indigenous names in there are just different versions of, like, I'm a fraud in different Indigenous languages, like Iroquois, and I think I used, it would have been a Coast Salish one or something. So, yeah, I mean, at times, Eleanor Navia May Payne, if you translate her Chinese name, is Big Cock Dissident, and, like, all these other things. It's like
without fail in this book, whenever anything was in Mandarin Chinese, I just immediately put it in Google Translate because I knew it would be something ridiculous. When we're talking about the poems we liked, the Baba poem will definitely be mentioned. That is, it's masterful.
Yeah, Baba is turning out to be a fan favorite, and it is definitely one of the.
Yeah. Was it Dirt Hog Sauvage, respectfully?
Yeah. How
did he come about, and who is he in the poetry world?
Yeah, so Dirt Hog, I see in journals, like, there's one by the name of Bleach. I think I mentioned it in the notes. There was, like, a Finn Garchomp Jr. or something, and, like, some people just create really fucked up names as, like, a haha, being ironic, but I don't want to tell you who I actually am. And, like, that's fine. You can do a little bit of that, but I was starting to see it everywhere. And I based Dirt Hog off of the type of older editors who want to stay relevant and, like, pretend to be part of the newer generations and stuff. So he was Greg Spelt at first, and then he becomes Dirt Hog, and he's trying to become, like, a Zoomer, even though he's, like, in his 40s now. And so he did a couple of the poems in the collection, because when you're an editor at a magazine, they screen your shit way less. Like, it does not have to be very good. You're just going to get in. So, like, his stuff is particularly bad. That's the Cherry Blossoms Bussin' and all that.
Cherry Blossoms Bussin' was incredible. Is that the one where he says, like, he's really bad with Japanese names, but I love the culture? And just goes on to say, like, just a bunch of really racist stuff. Yeah. The Ohio Bussins, it was a fantastic one. I was disappointed to see that was only published as a satire piece.
That one. It was going to be, if I'm not mistaken,
great poem.
Yeah, it was going to be an actual one in Dear Mida, I think, but I think Gorko took it first, so that could have been a legitimate one, but. Some of them, I just, like, I was so tired of having to send these out. I'm like, all right, I'll package a couple last ones up and I'll send them out. But we could have gotten them taken as real ones. Like the Sunday Gun Day one, I got, like, an acceptance way after the fact.
Deranged.
Yeah, it's just deranged. It's just bad. But so many people were like, yeah, we love that. Like, we'd love to have it in, like, I think it was like Riot Zine. Yeah, they wanted it.
The Sunday Gunday one read like a boomer Facebook post. Like that level of just deranged anger, and
right.
I guess at some attempt at being witty, like making the prices $17.76 or something really puerile. Something completely puerile. I just find it so hard to believe that any semi-competent human looked at that and went, "Yeah, that's good."
Yeah. There's so many moments like throughout where you just like have some little detail that just, if I picked up on it, which I'm sure I didn't pick up on every single one, but one of my favorites was Meowcom X in decolonizing. When I saw it, I was like, come on, that's so good. Yeah, lots of crack ups, and I'm sure I didn't pick up on a lot of them.
There's so much deep lore in this. So if
this is, it's kind
you
of
could
like,
just keep combing through this book for Easter eggs for a really long time.
It's almost like I used to play D&D, and we had a game master, a dungeon master, who was just so unnecessarily committed to the game that the depth of the world that he had built and the little Easter eggs and stuff, we loved it. It was a great time, but he was just obsessed with making his world, and I'm sure he ran multiple campaigns within this one world that he was building and just frothed it. So I get the same kind of love of world building within the context of Echolalia. Yeah. I wonder how much background context in the creation of this world and the relationships between the people isn't in the book explicitly, but is something implicit in the way that you created them.
Yeah, and like it's almost like vaguely schizophrenic in a way, because I'm like assuming these different voices, and every time one of these personas is writing an email, they have a different style to like even just communicate with editors, and I had to keep them all kind of separate from each other. But yeah, like that sort of...
Were you institutionalized during this process?
I think if something bad had happened to me while I was writing it, I probably would have just like gone straight off the deep end. Like I felt pretty close at times, but that sort of world building strategy, I think, is what I brought to this, because I felt people would be able to appreciate that. You guys obviously can, and there's just. That just means there's more to look at. You can reread it and get something out of it the next time. Like, you can technically decode the book. I've gone even deeper. So there's even more hidden in there, and I just wanted to reward readers who actually read it closely. But
there's so much in there for people listening whose sort of thing wouldn't normally be poetry or a fake poetry journal or a long-running hoax rendered into a fake poetry journal. I still would really recommend picking this up because, like Jasper said, there's so much deep lore in this that you can dig into, and the more you do, the funnier and funnier it gets.
Yeah, and
it just continues to be,
and the quality
really
of the lampooning
funny.
is just incredibly high.
Yeah,
it's some of the poems. Although I don't read poetry very often, but every now and then I read some poetry. Appreciate good poetry, but the appreciation on this is like, it's made me wonder whether or not the room was actually intentionally bad. Is there some level of mastery of just making something so bad that it becomes good? And it was really fun to read. Quite a bit of it.
Do you want to read out some of the poems that we particularly like and intersperse that with questions? Because I'm just finding it so hard not to start quoting stuff.
I'll start with decolonizing Australia.
Do you want to do that? Because I really want to read out cherry blossoms bussin'.
Yeah, all right. So, Z.L. Williams, I'm pretty sure this is the correct one. Decolonizing Australia. Kitty cat, darling, explore your new home. Take great unfettered strides. Get uppity. I won't stop you. No more donated food. No more scratchy cotton blankets to catch broken rest on. You've been emancipated. It only cost $49. Sorry. You came with a free tote bag and treats for the easing process. God, sorry if I'm laughing too much. Still wearing your tag? It claims you as French. Mao. You don't look French. Never trust a slave name. Your gloss black fur is earth-drawn onyx or gunmetal to them. They write superstitions about you. Broken mirror. Steps under a ladder type shit. What's 7 years of bad luck in your language? Can't say. Did you have yours stolen too? Your meows are sibilant and curled as if formed at the front of the mouth. They instead want to emerge from the diaphragm. Collect forgotten phonemes on the way out. Reclaim your syllables, friend. How about a new name, one with an X in it, or an emoji? Self-determination is just that, a linguistic unyoking. Let's try. Blink if you hear one you like. That one? Good choice. Right, the food. I'll spare you the IAMS, unseasoned chicken pellets. Tonight, Malcolm X, you eat beef, soya, and lentils with me. Tonight, we feast as the free.
Beautiful.
And I'm sorry if I didn't read it with the correct pacing and stuff with the line breaks or what. I don't know how to read poetry properly. I tried my best.
And it will just never stop being funny to me. The process of decolonization involves buying a cat and then locking it in your house, and then feeding it some dish that's full of onions. I think you noted that in the publication notes. This is some meal that will definitely kill it straight away.
That's
Levi
fucking hilarious. So I'm
just coughing
dying
into the microphone laughing.
It's just so funny. I love this. I love this bit where you're like, never trust a slave name. Poor kitty.
Poor cat. Darling little Malcolm X.
Shimo. That's my slave name, kitty cat. I love. Before we move, yeah, mate. Do you want to read a poem and then ask Jasper a question or two? So what I like about this is having gone to a Western university for far too long, in Melbourne, major metro, and Melbourne is like the Portland of Australia. Yeah, Jack, were you about to jump in?
No.
And so
I've just got cherry blossoms bussin' in front of me, and I'm trying not to laugh. So go on.
And I've got friends and stuff who are deep in this world of decolonizing whatever, and very sort of intersectional thinking and whatever. For the most part, not bad people or anything, but definitely in an echo chamber. And sometimes I talk to them and I'm not sure that they realize that they are in an echo chamber. And I guess I was wondering what your perspective is, Jasper, on, the monoculture of, I suppose, hyper-progressivism and how it's ended up in the institutional poetry industry. Because that poem, I was just like, I know somebody who would unironically think these things.
Not only that, it's like I've read stuff like that before. I guess maybe, okay, I'm sorry to jump in, Jasper, but I'll let you speak in a moment. But maybe part of the reason why so many of these poems got accepted despite seeming like satire to us is that if you exist in a world where this is just completely normal, your ability to detect...
he dropped.
Oh, he's gone.
It's like, fuck you guys.
We'll wait for him
Stop
to
colonizing my
back.
mind.
Yeah, but your ability to actually detect satire gets really fucked up if you actually just don't see anything but this.
Yeah, I call it I've got when Jasper comes back, I call it the lampoon coefficient. Like, if you have a high lampoon coefficient within an art form or academic discipline would be the proportion of content or publications in that form or discipline, which is lampooning, that hasn't actually been detected.
Yeah.
I wonder how many people have actually submitted fraudulent, or not fraudulent, but lampooning self-conscious works to these publications or whatever,
Well,
and they just never get picked up.
It might just be people submit things like they get a feel for what is expected or what's popular, and so will tweak what they write slightly to fit that.
Yeah.
And then if you just get enough people doing that over a long enough time and that positive feedback loop happening, eventually you get to a point where an editor reads Decolonizing Astray and goes, yeah, Meowcom X, this is 100% serious. There is no way that this is satirical. Never let the cat trust the French slave name.
Was Meowcom X one of the ones that got published?
Yeah, Meowcom X got published.
I love that so much.
Almost all of the ones in this review did get published.
Didn't actually get published yet.
The ones that didn't get published, so I think there are...
In the second half.
He has a few haikus, and I think he only got one of them published. And I don't think he bothered submitting the other ones, because he said, look, if one of these shit haikus gets published, and I imagine all of them could get published, and I'll just include the other ones in. And then I think the Instagram poetry ones... Oh, here's Jasper. The Instagram poetry ones, I think he was putting up... He had an Instagram page where he was putting out these sort of these Instagram poems, and so I don't think he submitted those to journals either. Hey Jasper, we were just talking about.
Hey, sorry about that.
We were talking about.
I don't know what the hell is going on with my connection there.
Did
you guys sort of
Did you get
froze.
the question that we asked?
Yeah, so
maybe
I heard Jack.
Yeah.
Jack was saying something about how he's attending a university, or you spent too much time at a Western university, and people were in a sort of echo chamber, and they would sort of read this and think it was actually serious, that kind of thing, and then it kind of cut off.
Yeah, and so my question was essentially, and Jack was saying how, we were wondering if you're in that sort of echo chamber for long enough, it's very hard to detect then when... something that's lampooning you comes along. You can't your spidey senses are off, and so I was wondering what your perspective was on. And I'm trying not to use too charged a word, but the word that comes to mind is the infestation of
using neutral language
of the institutions with one particular flavor of ideological. Monoculture. Look, I think it's still fine for people to have whatever perspective they want, except it seems like, because I think it's similar in Australia, like the poetry journals in Australia have the same sort of stuff that you're lampooning in the US and Canada. Yeah. And to me, I get worried when... So I've got a rule of thumb, which I call the postcode principle for myself, or it's a zip code if it's in the US, which I immediately realized probably 7 years ago or 8 years ago, I was like, why are all of my opinions the same as everybody else in the inner west of Melbourne? I was like, wait a second, something's wrong here. Why is my postcode a predictor of my point of view? That shouldn't be. And that's part of the reason why I was interested in starting the book club from Hell with Jack, because it helped me defrag my brain. So if you apply the same thing, it's like, why is everybody thinking in the same way in these institutional publication of poetry, and what's your thoughts on that?
Yeah, so I mean, it's a huge topic because to go back to the Meowcom X thing real quick, because that I started to sort of lose my audio there for a sec while you guys were reading, but I heard most of what you were saying. The beef suya would kill the cat. Like that would don't feed your cats beef suya. There's a lot of onion and garlic powder in there. So with the monoculture stuff, I find that, and I sort of note this in the afterword. Poetry isn't really a culture generator at this point. You know, it's not a source of culture for the most part. It just is downstream of it, and so poets
It's
will
reactive.
Yeah,
Generative. Yeah, interesting.
poets react to what's going on in the news, and they immediately, spew out this or that take on it and stuff. So they kind of just, whatever ideological bends they operate with kind of bleed into their work now. And I've met and personally worked with quite a few poets who have quote unquote made it. You know, they're industry fixtures, they get lots of publication deals, they edit anthologies. And one even looked at this. I won't give his name because, he's got a family and stuff like that. But I met up with him at a coffee shop. He's like, holy shit, what have you done? I'm like, well, he's like, I can't sign off on this. I'm like, that's fine, man. Like, it's cool. Like, I understand. He's like, some of what you're saying, like, I agree with, but I can't say that. I can't openly state this, because how he described it was, there's an inner room, and you want to do whatever you can to get into that room. And these days, that looks like just whatever, towing the line, speaking on panels about decolonization and nodding your head if you're a white guy and stuff like that, or writing a collection about some this or that politically charged topic. The more you do that, the more they see that you're part of the team, and the more opportunities they tend to give you. So really, it's just everyone kind of covering their asses half the time. Some of them don't fully agree with this stuff, or at least all of it. But they know that it's in their best interest to not really ruffle any feathers, so to speak. So it's a big mix of things. It's kind of cowardice. Some of it is just it being downstream of the broader culture, which is, let's say, diseased in many ways in its own right. So yeah, it's just kind of amalgamated into this weird, I don't know, industry beast that seems to be hard to get away from if you are ambitious and you kind of want to make it to the top. You're kind of stuck.
It screams of the long march to the institutions.
Yeah, yeah.
And it's worked. And
this is the poem that Antonio Gramsci wanted. This is what he was dreaming of in prison. Like, if I die, but if one day decolonizing a stray gets into a poetry journal, then my sacrifice will have been worth it.
Yeah. It's really interesting. I'm starting up my own business and working with artists in the creative and performing arts, and I noticed that I'm not from that industry, right? I'm from software and worked in like energy and startups and stuff. And I'm just thinking like, oh yeah, we should just do A, B, and C because that's just sensible business practice. Like make a profitable business, charge your audience. And one of the things I was thinking was, oh yeah, so we could probably reach our audience if we use X, right, as a social media platform. And they're just like, oh no, we can't use X. I was like, why? It's like, oh, because essentially our peers, we really don't like Elon Musk. So when I was just thinking like, are you fucking kidding me? Your audience is on X.
Yeah, it's like you don't have to invite the guy around for dinner.
No. It's just like, and it's because not because the audience will be upset. It's because the industry peers as well. Your industry peers are broke. Don't do what they're doing. Let's have a think about reaching our audience where they are. And something as simple as that, it's like, I wonder if this applies to it seems like it applies in other arts as well. Definitely happens in film. I like the way that you put it, the inner room and the implication of that. And I think it's almost like, how can you have artistic integrity if you're calibrating yourself to try to be in this inner room rather than create the art that you genuinely want to create as an individual or whatever, you know. Anyway, sorry, I'll stop ranting about that.
No, it's an important topic. I mean, that's kind of what the whole point of this project is. It's challenging this concept of the validity of the inner room and just the kind of thought process of this kind of weird exclusionary approach that they take now. Because to your point, I think it really just does end up harming the medium, and it chases away readers. I mean, I make the case in the afterword that almost all of the readership now for poetry is just Instagram poetry, because no one wants to engage with this like hyper difficult, hyper political weirdo content. And yeah, I mean, yeah, it's things like, oh, we got to use Blue Sky now because we don't want to use X because Elon said a no word once, or whatever the fuck they complain about. Like, it's just bad. It's just weird. I don't know.
There's this fantastic tweet that Naval Ravikant put out when that first happened. So, you know, especially the indie tech people on Twitter were like, I'm going to Blue Sky now. I'm leaving. And Naval Ravikant put out an amazing tweet. He said, yeah, the people who are going to Blue Sky now are about to learn a hard lesson about network effects.
Yeah.
Yeah. No doubt. And I think that's happening across, you know, like art is moving on, you know, for example, Instagram. People will move away from these, I suppose, traditional institutions for outputting things like poetry. They're moving into online spaces, into less structured media, and the institutions, I suppose, in some sense, because of the change in consumer behavior, are being delegitimized.
Yeah, and I mean, it's creating strange pockets within the industry where they're like little profitable pockets for a bit, and then they kind of just get chased away. They cannibalize themselves, or they just I don't know. It's such a strange business model to basically hate most of your readership.
It's a bold business strategy. I guess decolonizing a stray in many ways
I can't believe we're getting this deeper conversation
is emblematic of why I have tried a few times to get into contemporary poetry and have never been able to, because apart from the partisan stuff doesn't bother me so much. The thing that bothers me is that it's boring almost always, because when an art form it feels like all of its cues from like TV networks or from like one partisan bit of X.com, or when they, for retail political reasons, decide that one particular consumer product is their product now, you know, I will only use this social network rather than this other one. When art basically just turns into a shitter version of the news, I completely lose interest. And decolonizing Australia is kind of that. It just feels like distilling stuff that you might hear on the news or at some like shit talk at university, and then expecting to be congratulated for making some sort of artistic statement. To me, the most egregious thing done is that it's almost always extremely boring. And sure, decolonizing Australia works because it pushes that to a point where it becomes funny, but it's not that far from the boring shit, and that's what really irritates me, and what makes me read something that is a piece of contemporary poetry and go, yeah, no, actually, you know what, I'm fine not engaging with this.
Yeah. No, that's a great point. I mean, you've almost created like an editorial version of poetry where
that's a really good way to put it.
Yeah, you're finding a new way to package news headlines, but it's just as if you're doing it with more of a creative splash. Like, I read these and I go, yeah, you read the news 3 weeks ago and you decided to send this, and they published it pretty quickly, or like 3 months back when this thing happened in this part of the world, you saw a news broadcast and you figured you'd write something right away, and they took it, and here it is now. So yeah, you could actually.
How many poems do you think now exist about vandalizing Teslas? And I'm not joking.
I honestly, like right now, probably if you could like do an active users type chart, you probably got about like 2,000 poets currently at their writing desks, like actively working on something of that kind to send out to these shitter magazines. Like, it's so predictable, and I make the case that the worst aspect of contemporary poetry, worse than the horrible business practices, the nepotism, you name it, is the predictability of it. It's so stale, it hurts. I can't believe it. Every single new collection I encounter is just stone cold on arrival. It's just already dead. And it's a real shame. But yeah, this editorial poetry style is, I mean, you could get the news from opening up an issue of like CV2 or something like that. Just read the poems, you're informed. Like,
yeah, and that is a serious indictment of any artistic movement, or quote unquote artistic.
Yeah.
But changing gears though, so that decolonizing Australia is lampooning one aspect of contemporary poetry. I want to read Cherry Blossoms Bussin' by Dirt Hog Sauvage, respectively, as a different aspect of the Echolalia review, where, let's go, I read this poem to my wife, and she just went, what the fuck was that? Like, this is one which is just, it's just mystifying how anyone read it and went, yeah, you know what, I want to publish this. Because this is one that is, it's so bad that you couldn't write it unless you were talented. So I'll read the whole thing out. I'm sorry if I stumble over some words because it's written and spelled like someone's having a stroke. So
yeah, go for it.
Cherry Blossoms Bussin'. It's all lowercase and includes one emoji. Respectfully, Mama Nature, your cherry blossoms be bussin' for real. For real spelled FR. They got me thinking like of some confession between an Asian dude, a samurai or some shit, and his like shorty. He's all stanced up under the tree, taking in the cool breeze, the smouldering orange horizon, and shorty rolls up looking like a whole snack cherry blossom circling overhead. And shit, do goes, glad you came through, and she says, Cap, you never loved me, Goku. I don't really get Asian names. Appreciate them, though. Samurai Ronin drip is simply ice cold, ice emoji. And with the setting sun, the first bites of night, she'll set in. She goes, you're going to the Battle of Fukushima tomorrow, ain't you do? Says, yes, sir. Chick goes, you'll probs die there's dangerous. Do goes, extreme cap. She goes, question mark, question mark, question mark. And then Do straight up catches a falling cherry petal between his fingers, looking cool and shit, feeling the riz welling up within. And he's like, I can only die once. I been in them drawers, you feel me? And for real, the riz works and they smash right there under the tree. And then the stars come out and make an unreal vibe or whatever. Ohio cat, Kyson hat. Anyway, Mama Natch, you be doing wild shit with these blossoms every spring. Big time MC energy from you got me imagining and shit. Keep it up respectfully.
Oh, holy fuck. Sorry, I was like moving my mic around to avoid that.
Could you please explain to me how with your insider experience, how does an editor pull this up on their computer and read it with a straight face, then hit reply, yep, no worries, we'll publish this? How does that happen?
I don't know. Samurai Ronin drip is simply ice cold.
Oh man, so like that one, yeah, like that German experimental magazine, Die Lehre Mitte was going to take it, but I think it was Gorko that took it first, just because like I was spending so much time answering emails about these and like sending them out. I was just getting tired of it. I'm like, I've already proved my point. But this one, would have been featured in Gorko as like a serious one. They actually thought it was me like just screwing around as like a Zoomer type thing or like doing something different. So I really don't know. I would sometimes like tip them off a little bit. And I'd be like, oh, yeah, trying something new, like trying to be funny with this or something like that. Or just like something to like soften it a little bit. Other times I would go in with no context at all. I would just go dry and I'd just send it to them like, thanks for reviewing my work. And like...
Don't warn them about cherry blossomed buttons.
So funny.
And yeah, it was kind of remarkable because if you wanted to put the hours in to just like shotgun blasting these out, you could have, and I could have gotten them like taken by like multiple journals, every single one. But as soon as I got like one offer, I'd go, okay, yeah, all right, I proved my point. But like, yeah, the worst part is like many people could have potentially been interested in shit like this.
It is also a work. It is still really good though. Like I know you're trying to trash it, but it's just so funny that it's good.
But I've said it a few times, but it truly is. It transcends incompetence. Like, it couldn't be the product of incompetence. Something this mind-bendingly terrible.
Cherry blossoms bussin'. So fantastic.
That one's easily one of my favorites. But I like those books where, like, I think there's one called Empress Teresa. Like those ones.
Oh yeah. We've got a few requests to do that. I keep meaning to schedule it in for one.
We've been meaning to schedule it in for a while.
Yeah, just shit like that's really bizarre, and it's like so bad that it kind of comes back around the other side and it starts being good. Like I was sort of going for that in a certain sense with some of these, and I think this is one of those.
Yeah, look, if I found it in a poetry anthology, it would probably be I don't know if I'd say my favorite because it depends how you're judging it, but it would definitely be the one I would remember.
Yeah.
It's a fantastic one. Another...
You do... Oh, wait.
Do you want to do one? Or?
Yeah, I'll do it.
I was gonna read an excerpt from My Wife's Son.
Yeah. I've got one, and then I've got one after, a short one after that.
Can I read a bit from My Wife's Son?
Yeah.
I'll only read a little bit, then we can talk about it, because it's a longer one. It's just... so there have been a few sections up till this, before you start getting to the punchline. So up till now, this guy has been ineffectually watching his wife give birth, and he's just a completely flaccid man. just a complete wimp. But I quote this part. I watch the orderlies convene about troublesome patients, crave TV stream affairs with doctors, mingle and cajole over salads and apples. Tyrone's late. He says he'll show soon. I watched him show in you that night. He might drive the Hellcat over from the barber shop. I paid for the haircut. What would your mum say if she could see this be here? Oh, the delicious spite, the zesty prick of miscegenation, yummier than this latte, that this casual dating app arrangements would yield such forbidden fruit. And the poem goes on. So the entire poem is basically about this guy watching his wife give birth to a mixed race baby that is the result of a black man impregnating her. Black man's named Tyrone. He's not present at the birth because he's in the drive-thru of KFC or something getting some chicken nuggets. and a zinger. This is one of the poems that I read, and it's constructed really well, but there's just the subject matter. There are so many tells in it that I imagine if you aren't completely immersed in, I guess that hyper-progressive, institutionalized poetry culture, you would immediately clock as satirical. It's like, okay, this is about a white being cuckolded by a black man named Tyrone. It's like, okay, this is a joke. But it got published. Obviously, people read it and went, yes, something really special's happening here. I guess the common theme with so many of these poems, or all of them, is how does someone sit down and read this and go, yes, this is serious, and I'm going to put my name behind it. So
yeah,
how did you approach sending this one off, submitting this one, and actually who was this submitted as? Which of your characters?
Yeah, this was BH Fine, and I submitted it to Pink Disco. I only submitted it, I think, like 2 or 3 places, and they got back to me. So I'm like, okay, cool. And I mean, it didn't even fit with BH's persona at all, because he was basically like asexual or like whatever else. So I don't know why they took it from him, but yeah, I didn't really say anything too crazy in the submission. I'm just like, well, you guys are into like erotic content, and I think this has erotic, like whatever cuckoldry aspects, so like hope you like it. And they're like, yeah, no, this is great. We're going to publish it in the whatever winter issue. I'm like, okay, thank you so much. And they wanted to send me a laptop sticker as payment. But I
fucking cheapskates.
Yeah.
For a masterpiece like that as well.
Yeah. So that one was definitely accepted as like a quote unquote serious poem. Like,
And when you're writing these, are there particular styles of poetry too that you're trying to lampoon? Or was this more about the subject matter, really focusing on the relationship between the author, or that, isn't it written from the perspective of someone called Soy Man? I think I remember right.
Yeah.
The relationship between Soy Man, his wife, and Tyrone. The emphasis rather than the form.
Yeah, there's an attribution at the beginning of it.
It's so demented.
It was written, inspired by Chester Jeeves's Soy Man poem. So we can assume that the speaker here is basically Soy Man too, but it's just an unfortunate piece of literature. But I guess what I found with that one in particular, like every poem was either based off of a particular style that I was seeing over and over again, like a formal aspect that just kept repeating, or subject matter that I kept seeing repeated. Very occasionally, I would take on an individual poet and sort of satirize their particular style, but for the most part, I was taking like a shotgun approach to get everything, a real maximalist approach. So that one didn't really come from any one particular poet's style. It came more from the trend that I see in contemporary poetry where guys kind of emasculate themselves in order to get published. Like, it's so sad. It's just so pathetic. Like,
it's like, what is it, like submissive dudes on TikTok? Have you seen this shit?
I have not, thankfully.
Are fucking, like, making videos about like how they like getting fin-dommed and shit. It's like,
it's
apparently
exactly
a huge thing
that.
in South Korea. So I was looking at this, I was like, what has the world come to?
Yeah, that's exactly it though. That it's like a manifestation of that, where they take it a step further and they kind of just I give a few example poems of this at like the higher levels, but I see them all the time at the lower levels too, where they just turn themselves into like these strange inert objects that can't harm or hurt anyone or like sexually harass anyone. And this is an extreme case where he turns himself into like a cuck, which is like the worst. So yeah, it's just really pathetic. And it's like, guys, you need to have a backbone. Like, you can write about what you actually feel and think and want to be in this world. It's fine. Like, but oh man, yeah, it's so sad.
It's like performative self-flagellation. And it's almost like, do you remember back in the early 2010s where there was that whole thing about white male feminists?
Oh, yeah, yeah.
How, yeah, I don't know, just immediately people just becoming suspicious of them. Like, what's going on here?
Well, it's when someone is just so obviously using this performance of being as comically non-threatening as possible, obviously as a way to have sex. Like, it's a strategy for taking advantage of women that I think most people pick up on that and get suspicious. It just apparently has really found its niche in poetry.
Oh yeah, for sure. Like, there are dudes, I've run writers groups, and I've been a part of several over the years. Like, and there would always be like long-haired weirdo guys. We talked about this on Black Ibis, actually. Alexandru was saying he had noticed the same thing. There's always like this one dude who's like slightly older than everyone else, kind of like hanging around, and like he tries to
around
talk
the
to
19-year-old women.
yeah, he's like always around this sort of like younger female poets and stuff, and he's always like trying to give them advice and shit. And it's like, I see these guys as the same thing. They're just like weirdly predatory. Like, I get that they're always just going to do this. It's a sort of adaptive strategy, but it's just sad. It's just sad. Just stop shitting up my journals with this stuff.
Strategy. Yeah. Strange. You'd think they'd just go and, like, I don't know, lift some weights or something, but I guess not.
Yeah. Fuck, like anything but what they're doing.
Yeah. Yeah, which poem were you wanting to read out, Levi? So I've been
we're covering. This is a banger episode. We're covering a lot of ground here.
I've been restraining myself from reading out Baba because it sounds like that's been one of the hits.
Well, why not?
Yeah.
Well, you could. So this is by a classic by Adele Nwankwo. Sorry, I'm butchering their name. Yaya Gaha.
This one is
Ya
just
Ja
straight nonsense.
Gaha, winner of the 74th CBC 7 State Media Short Poem Contest reprint. Quote from Toni Morrison at the top of the poem: "Navigating a white male world was not threatening. It wasn't even interesting. I was more interesting than they were. I knew more than they did. I wasn't afraid to show it." I'm going to apologize in advance. I'm almost certainly going to screw up actually saying this aloud. But it made sense in my head when I read it. Okay. Flit crit stit writ me into mist tick. Hinge match want to give me his white dick. Say no, mister. He say no, give. Like him queen, oh, the Caribbean. Speak in pidgin, ya speak real idiot. Voodoo prack tick custer, oyal drip drip. Sorry. Castor oil drip.
This is another one where I felt like I was having a stroke when I was reading it.
No get, I like Shakespeare. Otello. Sorry, I remember butchering it. Shagel Baski da Vorich. Me law woman go watch wrist. Only want wife go must a muster yes. Yes flit crit stit writ this bitch into mystic. Soon find out me make fresh blooms go fist. I don't know how to translate that. There were parts of it that I was like, okay, I understand what, and then other parts I was like, no.
Straight nonsense.
Yeah, this one, it was the first one I got published, actually. I really couldn't believe it. My then girlfriend, she was like half black, and she would, she'd have people approach her in public and sort of like act certain ways around her. And she would get like so annoyed with them thinking, like, thinking that she was like Caribbean and all this sort of stuff, or like whatever, talking about like voodoo stuff and like just whatever, just like weird stuff to try to like make her happy. I guess she's like,
she's Haitian or something.
Yeah. She's like, I'm just a person. Like, I'm not even fully. Like, just like relax, guys. So that gave me the idea. I'm like, well, what if I did a poem supposedly about how people assume this person speaks in like pidgin English and stuff just because she's black, but then the pidgin English is so bad. it's so bad it almost makes no sense. I've gone for like a pseudo iambic pentameter with like some of a rhyme scheme, but I intentionally fucked it up. And like, it's bad pidgin English. This is not how you would write it. But
he just butchered pidgin.
This is supposed to be like some fake Creole type thing. But like you have the Othello reference and all that sort of stuff, because they always love race stuff, and then the sort of race dynamic things and everything. But this one
Othello.
is
Yeah, of course. Sorry, I screwed. I couldn't read it properly.
Oh, that's fine. I put it in like Otello kind of thing like that.
Maybe it'd be better if you had read it.
Oh no, it's cool. I mean, I'm cool with whatever. I'm glad you like them enough to read them out. That's what matters to me. But
it's interesting because the Creole and pidgin, I suppose, either dialects or languages, depending where you draw the line. They do sound really cool. But it's funny that you that's what I mean about like and what Jag and I say is you've done such a good job of fucking it up on purpose and then still getting it published. Like, no, I fucked this up really bad.
Yeah, and like people will come at me and say like, "Oh, you're really like, hurting those cultures. You're debasing them by even playing around with them." And I go, "Well, I've spent so much time around people like this. I mean, I've dated them, all this kind of stuff, and I got their feedback on it too. Like they were in support of this. Like, I hate when
it's like that. You've got like a Jewish coworker who is totally
it's that kind of thing. I've got the Jewish coworker pass equivalent, but like, because I think what these types of poems do when they're published seriously and stuff is they actually just devalue those cultures anyway. Like they're so, they like fawn over every aspect of them, and I don't know, it just creates this weird dynamic where if you throw a Toni Morrison quote on something, if you like pretend to use some pidgin English here and there, suddenly everything around is just so much better, and like, wow, like we're decolonizing with this one, boys, and it's stuff like that. It's like,
yeah, fellas. I've been having this conversation as well with so I'm Aboriginal Australian, so indigenous, like for like whatever the fuck the term is, like indigenous, if I think that's the word that like Americans probably use, or native or whatever, and or at least most of my family is, and having this conversation with at least one Indigenous artist, Australian Indigenous artist, who was saying, there's a lot of people in Australia who are being put up for whatever art shows to tick the representation box, but they're actually not good artists, at least not yet in their development, and it's like. Yeah, but what's happening is, and the artist I was talking to about this is a good artist, and they were upset that it's like, okay, you're actually, by lowering the bar and not having, like you're not considering the merit of like the person's execution of whatever the artistic concept is. And it's just like, well, it's political or it's like a representation tick a box game. you're actually completely doing that person as an individual a disservice, because now they're basically just embarrassing themselves on stage. But also too, like, from as an Aboriginal person, I'm thinking like, wait, do other Australians think that this is like what Aboriginal people are like capable of? Is this trash? And when there's other Aboriginal artists who are incredible artists, and now it's like this representation game is not doing anybody a service other than the person at the publishing house or at the music festival or whatever, for them to say that, oh yeah, we tick this representation box.
Yeah, tons of that is happening right now, and I feel really bad for a lot of these up-and-coming artists because, they're going to get away with poems that, like, aren't quite finished yet. Like, they just needed a little bit more time in the oven, or they needed a little bit more direction. But then they get put out into the world, and this poet doesn't really have to face much scrutiny in order to get better. And if you lower the bar so much for, like, BIPOC artists and stuff like that, it is really just unfortunate for them. You want them to be able to participate in a meaningful way and not feel like they're just like a quote-unquote diversity hire. Like, I have nothing against that kind of content showing up in magazines or anything of the sort. I just wish that the industry was trying to actually, let's say, boost them up in a way that was meaningful and helped them realize as much potential as they might have. But none of the infrastructure I see now is doing that. It's really just kind of artificially propping them up.
One of the core ideas of like progress from like the philosophy of David Deutsch and Karl Popper is the idea of error correction, and that essentially all progress, whether it's the pursuit of truth or the creation of beautiful things, requires error correction, and error correction is fundamentally a critical process. And so whether it's designing, a landscape or a piece of architecture, or creating a piece of writing or poetry, or creating a new explanatory theory, there's an important role of various forms of criticism, including obviously things like peer review or public scrutiny. And insofar as a social setting impairs a critical process, or one way of saying it is disables error correcting mechanisms, you actually have a lack of progress and stasis, and in some cases regression. And it seems to me like, in the name of whatever political correctness, there's been an impairment of error correction with regards to the people that these institutions, at least on a surface level, say that they care about engaging with. It's like, yeah, you care about putting them on the stage so you can tick your box. But if you actually cared about helping a young, say in my case, like a young Aboriginal artist improve, you would give them not only the support, but also the constructive critical feedback, like, hey, actually, no, you're not up to standard yet. You need to like go and do more training. You need to go and get, here's the support or mentorship to go and do that. But you're actually not, you're not passing muster yet. And when they don't do that, what we get is, we get a lack of progress. We get a lack of improvement because there isn't that critical feedback mechanism that actually allows an artistic discipline to get better.
Yeah, no, I'm in complete agreement. I see that all across the industry now, and I mean, I think in cases like BIPOC artists and stuff who want to get better, it's that mentorship that they benefit most from. It's not a publication. The greatest thing that a poet can receive is a rejection, and I mean, I know from when I was starting out writing under my own name and other names, I learned so much from the rejections from, if I went to see someone in person, for example, I sent them like maybe 20 of my poems. I said, what do you think of this set? And they would go through each one and go, yeah, I didn't like this. This one works. This one doesn't. Those were monumental steps for me. Like every time that happened, I got so much better from that feedback. With whole manuscripts and stuff like that, I mean, I've just, every single time it has completely changed the way that I approach this, and it just makes you better. So that's what I think is really sorely missing from that aspect of the industry. Don't put them in the magazine if they're not ready yet. Instead, give them access to someone who will help them be good enough to one day get there.
Yeah. It's a really interesting, whether it's BIPOC or, any other particular group. It's a shame, because in the long run, it's like one of those, the idea of like, unintended consequences. The short term thing is, we're giving people space in this publication or whatever. The long term thing is you're actually like potentially impairing the person's development as an artist. Interesting. Jack, did you want to read another one or like have another strand of conversation?
Yeah, I was wanting to read Baba, which is, I guess, it's another example of fetishizing other cultures, in a completely uncritical way.
Yeah.
So this is the way the poem's set out. Like, I can see how this would be catnip for a certain type of person. So it's the vast majority of the poem is in simplified Chinese characters, but there are tiny fragments of English every now and then. And the fragments of English, I'll read them all out. So it's Jin Sunzui Village, a poor fisherman's son, 1957, immigrated, 70 cents in pocket, San Francisco, Chinatown, manual labor, long hours, hard work, bad white people, discrimination, perseverance. So those are the only bits of English in it, and otherwise, a lot of Mandarin. But then, so what the simplified Chinese says, and this got accepted. So I quote, "You can't read this, can you? Well, that's not surprising. You'll never understand me despite your interest in other cultures, your inclusiveness. You never included Baba when he first moved here, did you, white ghost? He gave you so much and you punished him for it. You probably think this poem is exotic and hip. Fuck you, fuck you, fuck you." And then, so that chunk of text repeats through the poem. It's also added in "buy my chapbook, bitch," and "die, die, die" in random spots. This one's particularly good because you've got laid atop one another. One, the bit in English, which is obviously very, very attractive to certain editors of poetry journals. And then just the bile in Mandarin Chinese. It's also astonishing again that, so obviously it wasn't someone who spoke or could read Mandarin who accepted this. And then they also just didn't bother running it through Google Translate and seeing, what does like 90% of this poem say? Again, more than anything else, it just astonishes me that I'm not clear what editors are doing when they receive something like this. That they just receive it completely uncritically. It's like, oh yeah, no worries. I actually don't know what almost all of this says, but it looks pretty good. Can you walk me through, like, what do editors do when they get something like this? Like, it's actually just mystifying how you can not bother trying to learn what any of the poem you're accepting says.
Yeah, and like this one, I actually thought they were going to get the tip off when in the final stanza, it's "following your example, blah, 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 I love you, Baba. I left the blah,
well, there's
blah,
more.
blah
Yeah. Sorry.
in English."
Yeah.
And
That's insane. So
I think this kind of poem is actually like the contemporary poetry editor's worst nightmare, because if they start like looking through your stuff and they're trying to verify if you know Chinese and they ask you any questions, like if they like go, "Oh, maybe it's the translator got it wrong. Like, surely this doesn't say this. I should ask this poet." It's seen as like the most offensive thing you can do. Like, "Oh, poet, do you know Chinese well enough to do this?" Like, they would risk like, pretty severe backlash on social media and stuff like that from submitters. So
that's such a catch-22. I actually feel for them.
yeah.
Actually put it that way.
Yeah, because, you know, if you're screening this and you go like, what is this? Like, you can't have this in the poem. Then the person goes, well, you know, this is, you know, traditional Chinese or whatever. Like, why can't I have this? It becomes
This
a
is the
huge
Chinese
thing.
American experience.
Yeah.
Die, die,
And-
die.
Yeah, and like with this one, I just wanted to see, yeah, would they actually even check it, or was it just so much of the strength of the concept that it didn't matter? And yeah, this one got published in Cathexis as another one of the serious poems, but I know that as an editor previously, like every time I got a poem that came through and I just didn't quite get what they were going for, or they were such like obscure references, I would obviously do my best to research these, but I would actually write to them and I go, what was your intention with this? Because this part is really not working that much, but we can edit it a little bit. Like I think if I'm reacting this way, the readers will too. And unless this was very deliberate, it's not working. Like, can you explain this a bit more? And that's really all it takes, because sometimes you can salvage a really good poem by just getting them to clarify what the fuck they were trying to do. But
Yeah. I'm just looking over your haikus as well, and looking at them.
I sent Jack a pretty good haiku this morning, or as to why I was late.
yeah.
Inspired by it, but I won't punish our listeners by reading.
Would you
it
like
out.
to read it out?
Oh, yes, I would actually.
Go for it.
I was.
So, I just want to ask Jasper, the syllable scheme for haikus, is it 5-7-5?
Traditionally, yes.
Are there different schemes?
Yeah.
You're making your own new scheme.
Yeah.
Yeah, so actually, 575 is like the traditional one. But if you read contemporary haiku, like Modern Haiku Magazine or something like that, and I got into a couple with these, they've actually kind of abandoned the 575. Like this kind of conception of the 575 is what they teach us mainly as a means of like having it have some identity that you can attach the sort of haiku name to. But a lot of contemporary Western poets have really just like blown the doors off of it and just tried everything. So I mentioned a couple by name that I really like, and like Richard Gilbert is a fucking like schizo haiku poet that I really like. His stuff is excellent. And so I used that kind of as inspiration, and I got rid of some of the old trappings, but kept enough of the haiku spirit, I guess, with the fragment portion and the phrase portion to most of them. So it is new. It is shit at the same time. It's just, yeah.
Yeah, because I asked that because I wasn't... Because a number of the haikus you have here don't always conform to that structure. And I was wondering then what actually makes a haiku a haiku? It's like it just is in 3 lines.
What's a haiku in spirit?
Yeah.
Like the sort of staccato sense to the reading, is it? I don't know.
Yeah, it's tough to say because I've read quite a few essays on this recently. There's one called The Disjunctive Dragonfly by Richard Gilbert, where he actually breaks down all of the theoretical configurations of a contemporary haiku poem. And it's immensely insightful, actually. He went to enormous lengths to put all of this down on paper. But if you were to read this, you might see how you could kind of get away from the traditional ways of doing it and kind of break through into almost like a half free verse, half haiku type hybrid form. It's my understanding that people still write fairly traditional ones about, nature and blah, blah, blah. But then there's the senyu form, which is more about human affairs. So these are kind of more like a mix of senyu and haiku, but the spirit really is just you set a scene with a fragment, and then something has to happen within that scene that you set. That's really all there is to it. So there's going to be some juxtaposition, some sort of interaction within your little sandbox. But then there are the one-word ones that I fucking hate, but they get published.
The one-word haiku.
Yeah, the hebephilia is the worst thing I think I've ever written, and it's just the feel italicized. It's so bad. It's so bad.
Surely that doesn't count. Surely there's got to be a line somewhere that it just doesn't count.
Yeah, because now we're just making
the world's
puns.
first 0-word haiku.
Yeah, like I hate one-word haiku, but I do see them in magazines. They do get published.
But how does this might be a naive question, but how do you judge the relative quality of one word versus another?
Well, the worst one I've ever seen, and I've seen many bad ones in Modern Haiku and Frog Pond and all these types of journals. It's the word tundra. That's it. It's just tundra, and there's open space around it, and it became this massively famous one. I can't remember. It was like some Norwegian guy who wrote it or something like that. I can't quite remember his name, but this was like his claim to fame, just the word tundra on the page. I'm like, this is just like something you would see at the MoMA, like just on the page. Like, this is horrible. This is just pure conceptual nonsense. But yeah, so things like that I see all the time, and it reminds me of that minimalist poet, the one, I've taught his stuff at times. I'm gonna draw a blank on his name, but either way, he was the dude, Saroyan, who sensationalized like weird gimmicky minimalist stuff. He wrote that M that had an extra leg, and that was the whole poem. Like, this is in the same school as that.
Okay. One other school actually that you do have a section on is Instagram poetry.
Oh.
Which I'm only sort of familiar with. Unfortunately, friends of mine at their wedding, in their vows, read out a Rupi. Is it pronounced Rupi Kaur or something? I've never actually said her name out loud.
I believe it's Kaur.
Kaur? Yeah, read out one of her poems.
Is she like a big Instagram poet or something?
Yeah, and I was in the crowd.
Yeah, because there have been a few people
went,
blowing up on Instagram, like legitimately massive Instagram followings, publishing poetry straight to.
Oh,
I think she really, really makes money. So respect for that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Everything I've come across though of hers seemed kind of shit. I just felt like I was missing something. But you do have a whole section on Instagram poetry. When did this start? And has it evolved as a style much, or has it always remained like all lowercase, just kind of wistful, unhappy, writing about broken relationships? Has there been any sort of development in that style over the years?
It's people think that it started with Rupi, but she actually was accused of ripping off that style from another poet. I can't remember this poet's name, but they eventually came out and was like, hey, I was doing this shit like 4 years before. What the hell? But Rupi kind of brought that easy cookie cutter mawkish style with the accompanying illustrations really to the forefront of the public consciousness with Milk and Honey. And I used to work in a bookstore, and they would sell that fucking thing like it was nobody's business. And every time someone brought a copy to the front, I would just, I'd look them up and down. I go, I hope you enjoy this.
You did that in their face as you were swiping their card.
Yeah, I'd just go, I'd be like, enjoy this one. But,
okay, let me see. The Sun and Her Flowers by Rupi Kaur.
Oh, yeah.
Has 26,591 ratings on Amazon and has a 4.7 out of 5.
Yeah.
What a shark.
Her Milk and Honey book has 60,000 ratings.
Fucking hell.
Yep.
That is insane.
Yeah, she is.
I respect that. I respect that way more than her poems.
She's so okay. So I've got a question for you both then, as I guess an outsider. She's got 4.3 million followers on Instagram. Holy damn!
Yeah,
Whoa.
she's an actual
She
celebrity
is
now.
making more than enough money to put some milk in the fridge. Damn. Okay, well there you go. Anyways, it's strange how big the fucking internet is, isn't it? You just got these like people who that's nearly 20 times the population of Hobart. The city I live in, following this person who apparently has not very good poetry on Instagram.
I just actually want to quote quickly my favourite Instagram poem. If kissing the homies gently with a tenderness I never showed you is gay, then I guess I'm gay.
Who said that?
That's one of Jasper's poems.
Was that? Oh.
Yeah, that's one of my ones.
I was thinking, I've been watching a lot of old Carly Muscle YouTube videos recently.
Is he still alive? Did he have a heart attack?
Yeah, but he's still active. He's still active. He's got flabby skin because he's stretched
Because
his
he's been
skin too
fucking
much. Yeah,
blasting
steroids.
roids for.
And I was like, I was like,
Dude,
wait,
looks
did
like a
Carly
hamburger.
Muscle say that?
If Carly Muscle got into Instagram poetry, I would get into Instagram poetry.
I would
Do you
straight up
remember
buy one of
years
his.
ago, he released that album. I think he tried to release a rap album and it sucked.
Oh,
And so he
yeah.
just started releasing beats with him saying like biceps curls or something over the
Yeah.
top of it.
Oh,
He's
fuck,
he's
yeah.
I was so
prolific.
impressed with that. Anyway, this is completely off.
I want to. I'm going to make that Instagram poem like my bio or something. But anyways, as an outsider, to get back to the original question, was so you guys are talking about like institutional poetry versus or like the cathedral of poetry.
Oh, please don't say that.
Are you familiar with the concept of the cathedral?
Yeah, from what, Curtis Yarvin?
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
like
I mean,
a shitter version of Althusser's ideological state apparatus.
yeah. So
Yeah.
the cathedral or the state apparatus of poetry and all the stuff that we've been talking about. Like, where should an artist, in this case a poet, I suppose, place the most emphasis for the legitimization of their artistic talent and merit? Should it be in an institutional setting like the one that Jasper's talking about and criticizing and I suppose lampooning, versus like just straight up going straight to the consumer in a medium like Instagram where like numbers don't lie? Lots of people like her poetry. Probably more people know this woman's poetry than Bukowski, right? And or whoever. And yeah, she's raking it in. And as far as maybe she's submitted stuff to poetry journals, but I doubt she cares what poetry journals think of her poetry.
Yeah, why would she?
I assume that she cares a lot more about what her bank account says. So, what's your guys' opinion on that as people engaging in as you know, as artists publishing fiction and poetry and so forth?
Yeah.
Do you wanna go, Jasper,
Jack,
or
do you want
should
to go
I?
first? Also, if you, I'm just gonna rock a piss real
Oh, I
quick.
dropped again. Oh,
I don't know.
yeah, I'll
Yeah,
I'll let you
yeah,
rock
no.
that piss.
Rock that piss and kiss the homies
Yeah.
goodnight.
Yeah.
One sec, guys.
I just think so. You look at what most people spend most of their time consuming, and it is bright flashing lights and loud noises on TikTok. So I truly think the majority of the population has absolutely no taste and should not be taken remotely seriously when it comes to art. I'm not saying that with any ounce of irony.
Fuck the masses.
It's the artistic equivalent of, you know, that cocaine rat that just kept like hammering cocaine until it died, or the ones that just like suck down sugar water forever. Like that's most people's artistic sense.
Are you calling Rupi Kaur a cocaine rat?
No,
Or
I'm calling her the person
fair.
giving people cocaine. She monetizes it. So
She monetizes
yeah,
the
like
cocaine rats.
hats
of
off
the
to
internet.
her. I don't take her seriously artistically. In a business sense, fuck yeah. Like she made a shitload of money writing trash. Like she made a huge amount of money. So good on her for that. But no, I think respect from peers whom you respect is worth a lot. But in terms of your average person, I actually just think they have zero artistic taste. In fact, I might even say it's negative. Like, there might be a negative correlation between how commercially successful someone is and how worthwhile they are artistically. It doesn't hold perfectly, but again, given how catastrophically bad the average artistic taste is, I think that's a good rule of thumb.
So one of the artists I'm working with is literally having that same conversation with themselves about, do I produce art that I really just care about, exploring the idea or creating the art that I want to create versus quote unquote commercial art, whether it's theater or dance, like trying to create something that you think will catch on in the market. And the tension there between trying to make a living
Yeah.
and just create the art that you want. At the end of the day, you've got to pay the bills, and you're not entitled to other people's money.
No, absolutely not.
So, but I also see what you mean about, having the value of having peers whom perspective you respect and you think that they have taste also has a place, for sure.
Yeah, and even that you're not entitled to other people's money, I wouldn't conflate basically a business proposition with artistic merit.
Yeah.
So it's, should you be judging the YouTube recommendation algorithm and painting in the same way? So, no, I think these things are doing quite fundamentally different things.
And there's also an interesting line of thinking that sometimes something gets views or whatever, not because people understand it, but because it's being viewed. Like for the class one would be the Mona Lisa. Like, obviously, Mona Lisa, important, yada yada. But also, when I was at the Louvre and I didn't even bother. Did I go and look at the Mona Lisa? I can't remember because there's just always such a long line, and
it's
most of the time
tourists taking photos of themselves in front of it like
with
this.
the Mona Lisa.
And if they're doing that, it's like, is this actually artistic enjoyment?
It's not. You're documenting for your Instagram that you're in France at the Mona Lisa, so you can tell your friends about it. You're not actually the Mona Lisa as the proportion of the time that people actually spend appreciating the Mona Lisa to the total amount of viewing it gets must be the lowest of any piece of art. But yeah, so I get what you're saying. It's interesting because presumably the balance there is also, I mean, I guess it depends on one's the way that one wants to live their life and financial circumstances and stuff. But there's a lot of artists who I guess can go either way. Just say to hell with any commercial considerations. I'll just make the art that I want. And sometimes that's the best art. And then there's other people like, I suppose, what's her name? Rupi, who are like, just fully give me the money.
Yeah. It's why I think it's a model of patronage probably works much better than letting the free market decide when it comes to producing worthwhile art. So patronage model being like having an inner circle of donors essentially who support you financially, an art, or not you, but like an artist financially to create the work that they want, with minimal editorial interference in that artist. Yeah, or even if there's some editorial interference, I think it's probably much better to have a single person's biases informing what you do rather than just the screaming mass trying to turn whatever you're doing into the most easily digested slop possible to appeal to as many different people's tastes as possible.
The screaming mass and an analytics dashboard.
Yeah. Anyway, Jasper, are you done blasting out the piss? Ready to offer your?
Oh yeah, no, I've been done for a while. I've been listening to your takes on this. The patronage model actually is an interesting one because I think it's morphed into just these government subsidies. And I sort of tackle this a little bit in the book, but I know that presses, a lot of Canadian presses and all that sort of stuff, take handouts from the government, and that's fine. I mean, I don't mind taxpayers supporting the arts and stuff like that. This idea that there's minimal oversight is, well, maybe a bit outdated. I think, unfortunately, I think there's a little bit too much interference, because now they're actively screening just in the same ways that magazines are for particular identities and blah, blah, blah. So it kind of just has ended up reifying all of what we see now. And it is really unfortunate, because there are a lot of great artists who really do need to get away from their day jobs so that they can create like really lasting works, like really great pieces that could, change the game or this or that, offer new perspectives we're not really getting right now. But yeah, I couldn't even tell you how many times I've seen artists who like had no business getting a grant receive one for like $20,000, and they're on their like first collection, not even, and they're not poor or anything like that. So unfortunately, this kind of patronage system has kind of been baked into the larger industry problem. But yeah, as for like,
do you think there's a meaningful difference between government subsidization versus private patronage in terms of
that's
like
exactly what I was about to ask.
That it has the effect that it has on the quality and content and the form of the art that's being created?
Oh yeah, 100%. So like, I don't trust any, government supported press or anything like that at this point, just because I see what they're putting out. They're not taking any chances at all, because as soon as they do, if they do something that upsets the government or whatever sort of agent who's screening their applications and stuff, then the money dries up. It's like the whole USAID thing. They're looking for the same types of handouts that those types of businesses were getting. I mean, Canada supports all these video gaming studios and stuff in the same way, and the products they're putting out are really just bad. They're just flat out bad. So private patronage still has potential, because if the person putting up the money isn't really going to interfere all that much, and they hand select the right types of artists and stuff, and they just kind of let them do what they need to do, that's a great thing. I mean, that's freeing up people to really put in the time and effort that they need to flesh out these concepts that they just wouldn't be able to based on current economic difficulties, let's say.
I guess my concern about it is twofold. One, on the one hand, if it's private patronage, donor programs and that sort of thing, you could have a menagerie of people from different political, ideological, cultural persuasions funding the particular art that they want to fund. Whereas with the state apparatus of art funding, I also saw it in the non-for-profit sector as well, which is a different discussion, but related, which is it actually has, I think, largely homogenized a lot of the arts in Australia, as in we actually don't have we have diversity at the level of skin color or gender identification, but we don't have diversity of perspectives, which I think is a much more important form of diversity. You go to pretty much any arts event in Australia and you'll get the same portfolio of pseudo-transgressive art that is state-funded and
state-funded transgressive art.
Yeah, state-funded
Yeah, I know, right?
art that's sticking it to the man whilst getting millions and millions and millions and millions of dollars off the government to make that so-called transgressive art. And the noticeably what's missing in the artistic sector is, for example, like I don't necessarily consider myself right-wing or left-wing or anything, but I am starting my own business. I am an entrepreneur, and therefore I care about capital and capitalism and that stuff working. And there's just intense amount of anti-capitalism in the arts sector in Australia. And it's very permissible to just, take pot shots at pick your entrepreneur like Elon Musk or anything, but you turn it around and, take pot shots at, I don't know, like government funding programs, whatever. It just doesn't happen. It's just like these massive ideological blind spots. And I think that, I guess I wonder, it sounds like a similar thing is happening in Canada, which is that interference is actually creating a monoculture within various parts of the arts and the creative and performing arts, which from a consumer point of view is like, I think it can result in essentially like a cultural desert.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I'm in agreement there, and I mean, it's a bold move these days. Well, yeah, I mean, I think we're all on the same page with this, more or less. It's just, I mean, it's tough to start a business these days, so you have my respect as well, because, I mean, we're up against really probably one of the worst economic climates the Western world has ever seen. So, yeah, you definitely have my respect for that.
You got to do something.
Yeah, you got to keep moving. You got to find. You got to try. You got to do all these different things.
And Atlas hasn't shrugged yet, so
yeah.
Levi's still trying to get his ticket to Galt's
Get my ticket to Galt's Gulch. No, if the entrepreneurs give up, society collapses. So no, you need to have people starting businesses.
Yeah, no,
Jasper,
exactly.
Where do you think that fairly uniform political and cultural orientation of not only contemporary poetry, but I feel the arts in general has come from? And particularly the most striking feature of it to me seems to be this complete lack of humour. It is the complete allergy to being anything but very, very dourly serious about the, I guess, quote unquote, important issues. Where do you think that's come from? Like, we've talked about government funding, and I do think that does have some effect, but are there other things?
Yeah, and this one's a huge topic, and this one kind of goes into, let's say, broader studies, certainly, than poetry, but it's not one thing in particular, unfortunately. It's just a collection of influences at this point. So poetry is obviously downstream of the broader culture now, so it takes its cues from everything going on in politics and this or that, economics, you name it. But we then have to look at what's going on in the broader culture, why certain phenomena are popping up the way they are. So you've got obviously the hypercultural aspects, like guys like Byung-Chul Han and all of that have talked about the hyperculture. You've got the general sort of, let's say, PC-ness, quote unquote, of everything. And it's almost become trite and a little bit cliched to talk about PC culture. We're kind of generally all aware of what's going
get on
on.
Peterson, though.
Oh yeah,
you can harp on that one enough.
He would still want me to harp on that and go, "Oh, the damn libtards, won't let me publish a poem." Like, it's
Next thing we know, Jasper is on Tucker Carlson.
Like, I don't even particularly fit neatly into that. It would be really funny because I feel like I really wouldn't fully agree with them either. So, like, I don't know where my niche is. I do find them funnier anyway. Like, the counterculture types are way funnier just because there's a complete freedom to be funny. You're already on the losing team, quote unquote.
Yeah.
Like,
we already lost this battle, boys.
Yeah, like, have a laugh. It's really how badly do you want to fight back and spite people? So, like, I mean, the economics show that we would be kind of on the quote unquote losing side and all of that sort of stuff, but it's, do
like
you just
poets?
throw up
or counterculture like artists?
I think, well, poets in general, because we make no fucking money at all and no agents will represent us, they all say, I make a joke of this in the book, but they won't represent poets. Like, they just refuse to outright, because they make nothing for the agency. But I guess, like, counterculture types and stuff like that, beyond the Nietzsche readers of the world and that sort of thing, just the ones who are aware that things are going wrong here, and it's an almost like inexorable march toward the monoculture paradigm. And you can try to fight back by living as an individual who sees through it and who helps himself and those around him to live better lives. Like, that's really my philosophy at this point. But yeah, we're kind of on the losing side, not to sound too much of a defeatist. So you have complete freedom to do anything you want. Like, you can completely torch your professional life by doing something like what I've done. You can
Okay, so there's two things to say to that. So firstly, a wise man once said, if you ain't got nothing, you ain't got nothing to lose. So take that into account. And when Bob Dylan said that, like, he's arguably part of the counterculture. I know he's not now, but the flip side is, hypothetically, if you were to dox yourself and come out and go hard on it and embrace the backlash, sometimes what happens is, like, you're tapping into potentially a feeling that other people have but don't express. So it's like the gap between, like, reported preference and like revealed and actual preference. And like, I could imagine a circumstance in which you torch your career within the context or the paradigm of the the cathedral, but you open up a new part of your career, kind of like that biology professor at that American university who's friends with the physicist, the brothers who are scientists. Biology, talked about evolution.
Oh, the Weinstein.
Yeah, the Weinsteins. Like, one of the Weinsteins, like, torched his career in the context of, the academic context that he was in. But now he's got this whole new phase of his career, which probably gives him more intellectual freedom than he had before.
Yeah, no, you can definitely do that. And I mean, I don't view this as me torching my career or anything like that. It's more just...
No, I think it's good for your career. It's great.
Yeah, no, like, I'm super proud of it. And, like, all the other sort of things I have going on in the publishing industry, like, I'm really happy with all of that. It's more just, if you were to do it the wrong way, if you were to slip up, it's a very, very fine line.
Creating a podcast where we review things like Mussolini and...
So you guys know the drill. Like,
Dad, our ability to get published with Penguin now is ruined. That's what we were going for. That was our long game with the podcast.
I've been trying to torch my career for the last 3.5 years now, and unfortunately, just given the sheer obscurity of the podcast, I haven't managed to actually destroy my reputation. There's what was the other thing that you said that was really interesting? So you were saying before about... Oh, yeah, so what are the other factors that could be at play here? And I don't know what you guys... I don't know what Jack thinks yet, because I guess we haven't spoken about this, but is there also, like, an issue of just, like, a skill gap issue of at the individual level, but maybe even at the level of the small businesses, like small publishing houses, like, not knowing how to do things like marketing effectively?
Yeah, that's a tough one, because
Jack
and I
mundane.
Yeah, and, like, Jack and I were talking about, just generally, if you're on the smaller end of things, how it is to navigate the industry. Like, if you have a novel or if you have a poetry collection or something, and, you got a lot of faith in it and all this sort of stuff, and just, like, how you even get it into people's hands when people like Rupee are dominating things. Yeah, I mean, there are so many broader cultural influences. Like, I haven't even scratched the surface with the other sort of topic, but for this one, I would say that the one thing that I've noticed that the indie publishers unfortunately lack is the sort of tight editorial team with a lot of experience and a lot of like skill.
Yeah,
let's say.
interesting.
Like I consider myself a pretty skilled editor just because I've done work for different magazines and all this sort of stuff, and I'll still miss things, so I need a backup guy. But if it's, say, just me, or in our case it's Noah and me, so like between the two of us we'll get it right. But I see all these other presses where it's just one person, or maybe it's two people. And they're soliciting works that are good, but I know they can't get them to where they need to be or where they could be. Because you look at an honor levy type, as I spoke with the Black Ibis group about, one of these sort of like big name, new alt-lit, supposed, edgy artists. If you're working with Penguin, you're working with Simon & Schuster, whoever the fuck, you're getting like a team of 12 people, realistically. You have the marketing side of things. You've got multiple editors.
How many revisions do you get on the edit?
Yeah.
I've got me.
Yeah, right.
Do they get a word-by-word edit at that point?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I can tell
so
you,
good.
like, without, again, doxing myself just yet, like, I've worked with decent publishers, like good reputation publishers with multiple people on that team.
Don't want to dox you, but you are a majority shareholder of Penguin.
Yeah, you do. You run
Yeah.
Antelope Hill.
The Antelope Hill publishes some wild shit, but
You
like,
don't say.
yeah, the fucking transgender industrial complex and shit.
Nationalist publisher.
Like, I mean, do I have a copy of one of their books? Allegedly, but
It's the forbidden fruit.
So I think there's some less conspiratorial / anti-authoritarian / anti-institutional questions around that, and more just quite mundane, just like capacity and capability issues as well at the smaller end of things.
I think a lot of it is, well, it's a combination of things in that where were these skills? Like, these skills were built up, of course.
Yeah,
like,
but
it's
they're
an
inside the
obvious
big-
industry to build.
Yeah.
It just then, for a variety of reasons, I doubt I know all of them, just like rabbit holed itself in one direction and started making really, really boring stuff.
Right. So my other question is, in terms of boring and skill and like connecting with your audience and making a decent, not necessarily saying about becoming millionaires, but like it'd be good for smaller poets, novelists and stuff. I mean, if they could leave their job and do it full time, but even if it's just they could reduce their work enough to be able to do it part time and create the art that they want to create. I guess I have a question for both of you around what I think of as just pressing the eject button on the 20th century industrial culture and just fully embracing the internet, and the wild web of ribosomal interconnections that you can form, and
Probably rhizomal.
rhizome, not ribosomal, rhizomal interconnections that create these pockets of relative obscurity, but also potentially large enough to sustain internal pockets of like artistic creation economically, and what you guys think about the current state of this transition to the information age and a networked society and its effect on literature and authors and poets, and where you're hoping that it might go.
Yeah. Well, Jack, if you want to go first, or it doesn't matter to me, but
Yeah, I guess my concern is, so there are some really great things happening with the internet and with things associated with the internet, like print-on-demand publishing, is really good because it drops the cost of producing, like getting a book out to people and shipping it, which is really great. And then modern telecommunications let people get in touch, which is great. It's like, without the internet, we wouldn't be talking to you, Jasper. So that aspect's really good. My concern is that it's almost too easy to get away from other people, and that might be preventing the formation of scenes, because criticism doesn't always feel nice.
Yeah.
And it's also necessary. Like, you need someone to look at what you're doing, because you're never going to be doing something perfectly and say, okay, well, this is what you're doing wrong. I guess the internet, with how the internet, the problem with how easily you can move across the internet is, if someone doesn't like how criticism feels, they can just go somewhere else, which might make the formation of a scene difficult, or just stop that from happening. Whereas if you're co-located in space,
like kind of a cesspool,
like in a city, then there's just less ability to do that. And I think that might be one of the reasons why we haven't seen anything really durable come out of the internet, in terms of literary
except for Nick Land and Curtis Yarvin.
Look, they're both such marginal figures anyway.
Yeah, no, it's interesting.
And Nick Land was at the University of Warwick for years. Like, he actually was in a physical space.
Yeah.
Physically, but his mind was somewhere else.
He was blasted out of his mind on meth. But
anyways, Jasper, did you have any thoughts on that? That's a good point, Jack. You raised some good points. What about you, Jasper? What do you reckon?
And the Nick Land stuff, I've read parts of Fanged Numina, and like he would just like drop these random blogs and stuff on like the philosophy of Bitcoin and shit, and like I love how he is genuinely a poet. Like, some of his configurations and stuff like that, I really like stylistically
like
the complexity of what he's doing. Like, even if his transhumanist cyborg, whatever fucking doomer nonsense is just it's so wild, and like it really is engaging. Like, if you're looking for a real like a crack hit in terms of philosophy, like that's where you go, guys like Nick Land. So I love that kind of stuff. But I guess to Jack's point, what I've found is, and I make this case in the notes section, we can't really see the formation of a scene anymore because there's not enough pressure. You can just float between different sort of groups and stuff like that, and you can flee or you can whatever. And there's really not enough aesthetic unity as a result. You need to be in a physical location with other people and really sort of like work through these issues together in order to come up with some degree of a quote-unquote movement. And I say that really
like
a movement
stuff.
Yeah, like if you look at all the really historically significant movements, it's all people in the same kind of place at the same time with roughly the same... Like, even if it doesn't matter, you're writing about wildly different things like the modernists, you're still kind of doing the same thing-ish. Like, just enough of it is there, or the influence of the other people is present in your work to the point that, it shows up in a meaningful way. So... we've had attempts at this, like the Peter Thiel Dimes Square movement and shit recently.
What did he do? What's he up to? Oh, let me look at Peter.
Yeah, like, I don't know if he's... I include the Nickel Square movement and the sort of fake future movements in this, because really you need that kind of thing at this point, like a massive donor to just stick people in like a fucking apartment building in New York and not let them leave until they produce something of worth. But it's just like... I don't know. I don't know if movements can emerge anymore because the right pressures aren't there. You need one or two Ezra Pound type figures, Gertrude Stein type figures, kind of lording over the group, going, wow, this is fucking terrible. Like, bring it back a month from now and fix all of it. Or you should try this with it. And
we just need Linus Torvald. Maybe all of art should just move on to GitHub. And they have their own like little emperor of that artistic movement on GitHub.
Yeah, it's just there needs to be more pressure on artists, and I think I say that you can basically lose 50% of all the published material today and lose nothing of value. It's not to be mean. It's more just if you had more of this pressure, there's a greater concentration of the good stuff, and people can seek it out and canonize it in their own ways. But now there's so many great artists doing so many different things. There's just no way to find them. There's so many fly under the radar, and it's a real tragedy because we should be reading
like
a lot
Jack
of these.
BC.
Yeah, like like our boy Jack here. You know, he's got his novel and stuff like that. Like, he unfortunately, without something like this, can't really get it out into the public very well because there are just so many novels. But
Yeah,
I
it's
don't
really
know. It's a
interesting.
huge topic.
I was thinking about, like, in regards to what you said. So I've been thinking a lot about where I want to start my family. Like, what place on the planet?
Yeah.
You know, Hobart, somewhere in rural New South Wales, middle of the desert somewhere. I don't know, seafaring, whatever. and I think there's a nice thing that is possible, which for me, I was thinking it's like, okay, what if I earn globally but live locally, and I I set up my life so that I can be deeply embedded in my local physical community, a member, recognizable member. I go to things and show up, and but then I structure my work, my earning capabilities in the digital realm, so that I can access a global market of 5+ billion potential internet users, right? And Balaji Srinivasan, who's a very prolific tech investor, he wrote this book called The Network State, and he proposes this idea of like, communities forming in the cloud communities in Discord or whatever, and then them people over time figuring out like how to bring those communities into physical spaces, like in the extreme version it'd be like starting city states or whatever, or seafaring together, and, which I don't know, I guess we'll see where it goes maybe. But in terms of like scene creation, I guess I don't know if you've seen any good examples of this actually being done in the real world, but I would be wondering about what's the potential of like starting a scene digitally, and then if you have a few major movers and shakers who actually have the project management and marketing capabilities and so forth to bring that scene into the real world, maybe not all the time, get people to move cities or something, but at least on a sort of yearly cadence or something, everybody from that scene actually comes together physically into the cafe in Vienna or whatever, to start forming these really important like physical interpersonal connections and actually, I guess, germinate a scene, a synthetic scene that's both digital and physical. I don't know.
Actually, I might jump in there because there is an effort from people like Gabe Sinclair, the guys at New Ritual Press, Dan Baltic and Matt Pegasus, who recently had an in-person event to promote one of their new authors. I think Omar King, he published a book that I keep meaning to get. There are new outfits trying to do in-person events, particularly around New York and Los Angeles.
That'd be fucking cool to go to
try to get that going.
Like that, yeah.
So I think people are giving it a shot, but it is still super scattered.
Yeah.
Because that's one of the giant advantages of something like a university, where you just get a lot of people in one physical place, which does really, really help.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, and actually to the university setting point, I guess, what has replaced literary scenes for me anyway, in some respects, is the MFA program, because that's where you have in most cases, physical presence of up-and-coming-ish writers all collaborating or at least reviewing each other's works, and that's why so many of these new magazines are born out of the relationships formed there. Yeah. But they don't really form great movements because it's just too insular. Like they just form a magazine or a publishing house, and that's kind of it. They're not interested in like, okay, we're the next great vanguard, we're going to do this thing differently. they just kind of go on to get into different magazines, and they all publish each other and shit. So like my fake Echo journal is exactly that, 3 MFA grads coming together to create a journal. So
it's a very self-conscious criticism of the MFA.
I think also, I'm not sure if you've noticed this, but I find there's sort of an MFA writing style, at least in prose, which feels very defensive.
yeah.
It feels like it's been honed in an environment where you get a grade for a piece of work and you're criticized in a group, and so the person writing it almost tries to reduce the attack surface as much as possible, which makes for quite clean minimalist prose, but also fairly boring prose.
Yeah, absolutely.
Which, I mean, in terms of forming a scene, I guess the pieces of work all read the same, which, you know, there's a degree of homogeneity which might help the scene, but the problem is it's homogeneously kind of dull.
Yeah.
Which is a bit of a drawback of the MFA as a place to try to nucleate scenes. If the scenes are all going to be kind of uninteresting, and if the interesting people from there aren't really accepted and just go off to do their own thing.
That's kind of what happens, at least from what I've heard anyway. I haven't been a part of an MFA program. I didn't want to get wrapped up in all of that. But I've known plenty of writers who've been MFA friendly or entrenched. They wouldn't like me very much based on what I write. But I think, yeah, the MFA crowd does try to play it as safe as possible, because they are trying to reduce that attack surface as much as they can, because I know how these people think and operate, and they, you know, you're in a group and it's kind of like a very high level writers group from a local community and they're very politically sensitive and minded, so you have to keep that in mind. You could write something really great, but if you have the wrong type of idea or something, that's an immediate spot of attack. And
Start writing poetry about eugenics.
Yeah, like if you come in with that banging eugenics poem, like,
Levi's eyes are lighting up.
Oh yeah,
He's found his business idea.
Look at this fucking brow ridge, mate.
like,
anyways,
Detailed descriptions of the position of a mole on someone's face, determining them as trustworthy or untrustworthy.
yeah, like you write that physiognomy, the phrenology poem or something like that.
yeah. Just enroll in an MFA and then just write poetry about physiognomy and race science. And then hide behind my race when they come after me.
Yeah, just do like a bunch of
I'll be the brave one. I'll be the white guy there, standing behind his poem, "Why I Don't Trust Asian People."
Solidarity over here. You could
and then unironically identify as an attack helicopter. Immediately kicked out of the university.
You revive the 2009 era meme.
Yeah, bring it all the way back from 2009 here.
To the late
pull up
period.
the dregs.
Yeah, like it ends up making them really safe, and so they get published a lot because of it. And I see them littered all throughout mags. They make up the vast majority of who gets published now. But yeah, there's really not enough that they're doing that's new or exciting that would really draw much attention from anyone other than the literary quote-unquote cathedral. So it just kind of ends up feeling a little bit stillborn, and I don't know. It's just not for me. But I am also against kind of this weird... I see certain guys on Substack and stuff talking about the decentralization of literature. I think that's just going too far in the other direction, where... then it scatters it so much that a prospective writer has no idea who to consult about any of this, and they need a little bit of that pressure. So some of the internet infrastructure is great. Disseminating your work really quickly, going on Substack, writing articles, gaining a unique following, and then moving up to the traditional publishing scene is totally doable. You don't have to send your shit to a publisher in New York, wait 7 months for a note on a hard copy you sent them. Thank God those days are over with. But there's going to be a happy medium, I think, hopefully, that breaks from the MFA infrastructure and this decentralization push for literature.
Yeah. If I were to
guess
think of it, like complete decentralization would be just individuals kind of like Brownian motion. Yeah. Like colliding into each other with their memes, their shitty Instagram poetry. But Medium to me seems like clicks in the network, subgraphs. But if they don't have that error correction feedback mechanism in them, then they just become cesspools.
I think the big thing is you need some sort of price for leaving. Like it needs to be in some way difficult to leave.
To leave to
force you to sit there and actually take some criticism.
Oh, okay, yeah. I understand.
Because otherwise, you get a slightly negative reaction. Go, well, I'm just going to go to the other effectively unlimited number of other niches.
In order to follow the Substack account, you must give us your home address, and we will come to your house and tape you to a chair.
Yeah, have a bomb surgically implanted in your abdomen.
I just think that I'm very, very pro pushing things to the internet as much as possible, and just because of the amount of leverage you get out of the leverage that we literally physically couldn't have this conversation, right? It's such an interesting conversation. And you get so much leverage, or you can have so much leverage, but then there are all these really important downsides that people like you guys, and I've read some other stuff on Substack and whatever, with other concerns about the full, a 110% embrace of decentralization of art and literature and media and so forth. And I guess I haven't solved the problem for myself, but I'm wondering what are the issues with it, and how would we solve that? Because it seems like a great form of liberation from you're losing the benefits of some of the local stuff, but you're also potentially getting free of the cages of some of the local things. I can't have this conversation with anybody that I know in Hobart. The only way I have this conversation is on the internet.
Yeah, I think it's very fashionable to be basically a maximalist on decentralizing things or flattening hierarchies, but hierarchies are pretty good for a lot of things. There's a reason why they keep appearing. It's not completely arbitrary. And for something like forming a scene, or even just people who are more experienced telling people who are less experienced how to do stuff, there's a huge amount of value in that. It's also, I suppose, what are you trying to decentralize and what aren't you? So certain things like distribution, sure, the internet's really, really helpful for that. Things like giving and seeking advice, I really do think actually more of a hierarchy and more of a structure could be much more beneficial to a lot of people in that respect.
Yeah. What do you reckon,
absolutely.
Jasper?
Yeah, I'm in complete agreement with that in terms of there's a definite need in when it comes to experience and skill as a writer or a poet or this or that, to maintain some of these hierarchical structures. Now, unfortunately, because traditional publishing was such a dominant force for so long, it was just allowed to kind of, warp and kind of change and become this strange ideologically motivated beast. So the decentralization aspect of distribution and stuff challenges that, and at least offers some freedom to writers who, for whatever reason, can't seem to get the support they need from those hierarchies. So I really do like that aspect of things, and people have found a lot of success just going out on their own and kind of blazing a path for themselves. So I love that. I think that's great. I'll never not support that kind of thing. It just, it's a matter of, there aren't enough poetry and prose mentors out there. We all need one if we're going to make it and do something meaningful. I've been lucky to have a couple just in very brief capacities over the years, but I'd like to be that for someone else one day. I don't know if they want me necessarily helping them if I'm doing this kind of shit, but like, you know, that's, I think if you were to introduce that aspect of things to literature with its current sort of framework, you would do a lot of good. And you'd really help kind of find that medium.
Yeah, because from my personal experience, having someone like that would be hugely beneficial, because at the moment, it's me, like trying to quality control myself, and you can never really do that completely.
Yeah.
I think certain people can get quite a bit of the way towards a good finished product by themselves, but you eventually need someone to come in who's not so intimately acquainted with the work that they just don't know if it's good or bad anymore to quality control it, really.
Yeah, and I mean, I can give you a prime example here with Echo. I had 3 versions of it. The first version was just a catch-all kind of cultural criticism collection, random things of all different forms. And then the second version, there was the Echo portion in the middle. It was kind of a fusion of general cultural criticism, like fake questionnaires, blah, blah, blah. Then, like, maybe 60 pages of fake poetry or sort of things like that, and then back to whatever cultural criticism stuff. And it was at that point that I showed it to the successful poet there that I happen to know. And he completely changed my mind on it. He's like, you know, I think the part in the middle is really where it's strongest, and this other sort of stuff, you could probably use like 220 pages. He's like, you could probably lose about 100 pages of this, and it would be a better collection for it. And sometimes that kick in the ass is really just what you need. I remember going home, and I remember going to my then girlfriend. I'm like, you know, so-and-so just said I should do this, and I'm kind of fucking pissed, but maybe he's right. I'm going to sleep on it. I woke up the next day and I immediately started on this version of Echo, and that's why I have this book. But it would have taken me however many more hours or days or months to maybe arrive at that conclusion myself.
You might not have ever arrived at it, without that critical outsider lens. Critical in a very healthy way.
Yeah, and I mean, I have nothing but I guess thanks. Because he really did help me arrive at what I have now, and I think so many artists are in that position. They're so close. Like I had to like proofread and all that sort of stuff, Echo myself, but all I needed was a structural change, and that was enough to get it there. So
and that's powerful. But so I guess the way I see it is that like a scientist in like an actual scientific field, not like I don't know, some bullshit. But like, you know, if they're going to go and present their paper on, I don't know, the mechanisms of endocrine control in female reproductive health or something like that, and they get criticism for their PhD or their postdoctoral dissertation, that criticism by their peers in, I don't know, a conference talk or something is coming from the place that their peers and their seniors are aligned with them towards a higher goal than anybody's particular ego, which is the pursuit of truth. And and yes, sometimes I was talking to a PhD candidate yesterday, and she's doing computer vision stuff, and really like that's very difficult stuff to do from a maths perspective. And she's trying to submit to like a Nature subsidiary, and so very high standard. And they're just like, it's 4 months resubmitting major revisions, just getting like ripped apart. Like they want all the code, they want, like how did you get the data, all this sort of stuff, revisions on the maths. And she's like, this is brutal. But it's like, yeah, but they're helping you create a piece. If you just submit it to Joe Blow Journal down the road and they just put it in there with no revisions, you're not going to make the progress that you want. You're not going to make the contribution you want. If you get it into this paper, you've been through this rigorous process, and it's because they're aligned with her interests of creating something that actually is in the pursuit of truth and new knowledge creation in her engineering discipline. And so I guess to me it feels like what you just described is very similar to that. It's your values aligned with a critical mentor who is trying to help you, so to speak, pursue the truth, or the highest form of truth. In this case, it's like the artistic truth or the aesthetic truth of what your work, or in this case, Echolalia, could be if it was the best version of what you could make it, rather than you just getting caught in like a quagmire of your own, like what you think is good, without somebody helping you like move through those limiting cases of your own artistic, getting stuck in not being able to move beyond your own where you can criticize it yourself. You need somebody else to come in and help you with that.
Yeah, absolutely. And I make this comparison fairly often, but your average indie book, let's say novel, poetry collection, doesn't really matter. That's more of like a live performance, if anything. Like some editing has gone into the average book.
That's a great way to put it.
Yeah, and so there's no way for that to stack up against a fully produced studio album that is a Penguin release. And so you're not even seeing the artist in their sort of rawest form. You're seeing the best possible version of this person's work, their style, their thoughts, with intervention from other people who've really helped shape it and polish it. So there's no way to stack up as someone who maybe has like someone proofread their stuff near the end and then they sort of put it out. So I don't really, when I pick up an indie type book or anything like that, I try to view it in that sense, where this person could, with the right encouragement, really get a lot closer to whatever their sort of ideal version of their book is, or they could get a more marketable one out of it, whatever it is. But yeah, they're just not going to get that kind of help without people actually really putting time and effort into bolstering other people up in the industry. And I don't know how I'm going to do that just yet. I've edited books for people, but I'd like to personally create some sort of
Is this a problem you're
infrastructure.
actively engaging with, trying to solve in your professional or side hobby or side projects and stuff? You're trying to figure out how to do this in a more sustainable fashion, or
so I guess with the magazine now, I have to create a space for writers who are quote unquote dissidents and all of that stuff. Just people who, just in terms of the subject matter or style or whatever it is, could not get published in most poetry journals because they're so exclusionary and stuff. If they can see that there's at least some sort of outlet, if they're doing what they're doing well, we're not just publishing random screeds and shooter manifestos in poetry form. That'd be funny, but you gotta try a little bit. They send me some Google Doc thing, 40 pages of them, man, they didn't have the right chicken nuggets at school. Fuck these guys. I'm not gonna publish that. But
what if somebody one day Echolalia is you?
When Jasper's
that could happen.
55 years old, fat and happy and established. Young upstart humiliates him.
That's the thing. I don't even mind if people try to fuck with me. They try to send me stuff that's subtly shit too. I would treat it as a bit of an honor. Clearly I've had some sort of influence then in the industry and gotten people to think about this. So they might even get me. I mean, I consider myself a pretty diligent editor. I always research what comes my way and all that, but I'll slip up too. I've worked with co-editors who've caught things I didn't. So I think I'd like to start something of a pen name revolution, if anything, just to begin with, because you got to create a bit of discord, a bit of anarchy and all that, while also on the other end trying to provide infrastructure somewhat helpful too, like places people can go to find mentorship and shit.
Actually, you mentioning pen names is interesting. Where do you come down on the pen name versus using your real name debate? Because I've read so many different opinions on that. So, I mean, I use a pen name, but I show my face. And if someone's really motivated, it's not hard to find my real name. Like, I'm not actually that bothered if people find it out. It's now mostly just for convenience's sake, because we've done so many episodes using not even complete pseudonyms, because we also use our real first names. But where do you come down on that? The difference between, say, the freedom afforded by a pen name and anonymity, and I guess there probably is some more legitimacy, at least to most, for people who are willing to put their face and their actual name behind something that they've produced. Where do you come down on that?
I think it's situation dependent, frankly. Where, of course, for something like this, the pen names were kind of baked into the concept, so I needed to use those. But
it's dramatically funnier for it.
Yeah, right? Like, it wouldn't have really worked otherwise. And, I mean, I did run that mini experiment on the side where I sent things out as regular white guy name and then as them, just to test to see who would get picked up, and they overwhelmingly succeeded way more than I did. So
yeah, the results were expected.
Yeah,
exactly what you
right.
think they do.
So I think some people might use pen names, such as there was one, I think she was an Australian author, actually. She got some, like, Holocaust-related novel published, and it won some decent award that I mention in very briefly in the afterword of this. Like, people like that who are doing it just for clout, or whatever you would say, it's not as interesting. You can, I guess, and it's still somewhat funny. If you just want to be a jackass and do what I did and get some more poems published and fuck with people, go for it. Like, I'm not going to stop you at all. But personally, I would see using a pen name as something necessary to the project. If it is actually necessary to what you're doing, like, you perhaps have a story to tell that isn't yours and it wouldn't be accepted if it came from you, but you have authority to do it, or something like that. It's just going to make dealing with the publisher easier, and you'll just draw more eyes. You might get an agent faster. Like, it's really just intention to me. I don't care about the execution at all. If you fuck up along the way and upset some people, like, okay, great, whatever. They were going to get mad at you for something anyway. But yeah, I don't know. Pen names are totally fine. I like them. I want people to use more of them, especially if they want to get published a lot in poetry, and maybe they'll fuck with people for me. So
yeah, this could just evolve into a game of cat and mouse, satirical cat and mouse, of people trying to snipe each other, which I think a healthy level of that would actually be good. Keep each other honest.
It'd keep people on their toes.
Yeah,
I don't know how much more turbo irony we really need in the world as well.
Yeah, that's the thing, right? Like,
I already think,
I'm not
broadly speaking, we're uncomfortable enough being sincere without making that more difficult.
Wait, the next artistic scene is just a bunch of people trying to snipe each other whilst going about their actual legitimate professional careers.
Yeah, it's going to be like the weird sort of career assassination era or something like that. Try to undermine editors you don't like, who rejected your stuff before. Now you're going to come back at them with some shit. And
I just mail them envelopes full of anthrax, but that's another way to do it.
Yeah, you've come a long way since pipe bombs, Jack. That's very good. I'm proud of you.
Jasper, who are the poets today, like contemporary poets, that you do think are producing really good work? Because we've talked a lot about work that we don't like, but who's doing good stuff?
Yeah, there are lots, actually, and most of my influences are contemporary poets. I think they have a lot of potential, and a lot of them are doing really interesting stuff. So I mentioned this before on Black Ibis, you're actually, as a prospective poet, way better off reading people who are active now than you are trying to like ape Ezra Pound or even T.S. Eliot or, you know, whomever. It could be Spencer. It can be anyone from the past. You do need to be familiar with older forms of poetry to understand the maturation of it over the years, and you can borrow things here and there. But I would say, in my case, there aren't too many poets that I go like, yeah, he's my go-to from today, just because I'll like one of their poems and then I'll be immediately turned off by the one on the next page. I'll just go, holy shit, this is another like, you know, immigration story fucking extravaganza or something. Like, I've read this 400 times already, and I'll just set them down. But I guess it's tough to say, because I remember individual poems more than I do individual poets as a result. Like, there are some really excellent individual poems. But I'll try to find one from every single literary magazine that I read. So, for example, I've got just a stack of random CV2 issues here. I was reading through one the other day. Let's see if he's in this one. His name was Michael Chang, and maybe it's the other one here. What he's writing about is not what I would go out of my way to read, let's say, but he's doing it so well that, you know, I often end up in that position where I go, this guy is writing about the usual junk, but he's doing it so well, I'm totally okay with it. It was Michael Chang writing... Oh, fuck. I've got so many of these stacks of things. So I guess Michael Chang would be one of them. There was Eric Wang, not to use nothing but Chinese names that sound like fake names. Eric Wang. And I cite him in I cite him in Echo as... one of the major figures in the current era, let's say, of poetry, just because I like some of his individual poems so much. There was a group text after group text about the next dinner date after a millennium of waiting, or whatever the fuck it's called. And yeah, they really surprise me here and there. I've read so many thousands of these fucking things that it's really hard to like pull up random names of poems off the top of my head. They all just blend together. But and most of them are trying to be like different, but then they all end up sounding kind of the same. Like, I'm reading an issue here of Poetry Magazine from November 2015. And you've got poem titles like "Still When I Picture It, the Face of God is a White Man's Face," and just like, there's so many of these fucking ones mixed in there that are just so shit.
Yeah, it's sort of the domesticated transgression, or the experimental poetry as an identifiable style.
Yeah, and so I don't know. I'd have to go back through all of these and then find individual ones, but then I just end up, once you sift through all that, you're blown away.
To play devil's advocate, it's pretty hard to be original. And original in a way that's not shit.
Yeah.
It is, you know, I give props to the people who are at least giving you a try, especially if there's sustained effort over time.
Oh, yeah, for sure. And I mean, even if I'll go back and I'll read like Griffin Poetry Prize anthologies of like the long lists and the short lists and the winners and stuff like that. And there's really no way you can fault these poets at that point. Some of them I've referenced in the book. All the George Bowering types from like the UBC area and stuff. Like, I can't say I dislike them. Because they're just at such a level that it would be silly for me to go, yeah, no, they're kind of shit. So most of the time I just approach it over from, I guess, a position of respect, even if I don't like what they're writing about. So most poets, I end up respecting at a high level, but I wouldn't go out of my way and go, hey, man, you got to read this by Fucko McGee over here. Like,
I love Fucko McGee. Come on,
he's one of my favorites.
You've just given me my new pen name, Jasper.
Yeah, there you go.
FUQO, so it's not censored by the platform.
Yeah, it's got to be stylistic now. Yeah, fuck
Yeah.
the Q.
FUQQO_GEE.
Half Korean, half Nigerian.
Oh yeah.
Non-binary, paramedic.
Yeah. Now we're talking.
Yeah.
Adopted by Syrian
Here we go.
immigrants.
Yes. Here we. This is how it's done. This is
Actually, question for someone with some more experience with submissions.
Yeah.
Could you get accepted being white if you're Ukrainian? Are Ukrainian poets cool?
Are you the right type of white?
Yeah.
Yeah,
If,
that's
like,
what
your
it
name's
comes down to.
Poroshenko or something.
Yeah. Fucko
Yeah.
McGee Krabashenko.
Yeah.
100%. That right now, your odds of getting published just went up like 75%. Like,
Yeah,
that's a good move.
Ukrainian
right now.
refugees.
I know
are
what
so
my
hot right
new
now.
pen name is.
Should you just create a portfolio of pen names on the internet with appropriate X handles and avatars that are just purely reactive to whatever is the latest what's hot now in the identity politics.
Business
zeitgeist.
idea. You come up with the appealing avatar for the publisher or
I like
agent
where this
base.
is going. I like where
I
this is
will
going.
put you in contact with a real life Ukrainian who will write all of your emails in Cyrillic. Who'll put on a thick "Hello, how are you?" accent over the phone when you're talking to your agent.
Yeah, I think you're onto something
this
here,
is the
Jasper.
kind of
You
shit
could
I
have, it'd be very funny. And I'm only kind of half joking because we did read the fucking guy, the pink dinosaur guy, Jack, who starting a business
Chuck Tingle.
Chuck Tingles. We did read Chuck Tingles.
Oh, yeah, Chuck Tingle.
legitimately did get a career off the ground doing just this.
Yeah, Chuck Tingle was fucking huge.
Wait a second. Jasper, are you Chuck Tingle? Are you Chuck
That would
Tingle,
be
mate?
sick. That would be sick. I would be rolling in it. Yeah.
Jasper turns on his camera and he's got, was it that like pink bag that Chuck Tingle wears?
Yeah,
on
that's
his
right.
head?
The pink bag.
Well, yeah, I mean, that's the thing. You basically discern from just reading a couple of these what they're looking for. And I can't even tell you how many different issues of pretty big name poetry journals clearly just looking for Ukrainian submissions basically only. Like they'd do like a full Ukrainian issue, or if I'll notice just based on the way their names sound in subsequent issues, like a lot of them, a disproportionate amount of them are Ukrainian or something like that. And then I'll read through to their poems. I'll go, oh, okay, it's another like my homeland's getting bombed type poem. So if you're aware of this stuff, yeah, it's like, and I'm not trying to take away from their experiences or anything. Like it's legitimately awful in a lot of cases, but they get bumped way to the front, like
It's
immediately.
more when it's so obviously turned into a pure commodity that I start to get a bit suspicious. And I'm not even saying this on behalf of the poets themselves. It's more the editors who are like, oh, well, the new fashion is Ukraine's getting bombed into dust. And as soon as the more fashionable place starts getting bombed into dust, we'll just go for that.
Yeah, the weird thing that I note too, and this is from just having handled submissions at magazines before, it's not even the like the Ukrainian people in this case or whomever it may be who are doing this. Regular people who would normally submit to the magazine or similar ones start doing that stuff too out of like solidarity. So like they're sending images attached with poems about like Ukrainian experience. I'm like, dude, you live in El Paso. What the fuck are you like? You're like, what
My
is this?
brother-in-law's
live in
friend
Kharkiv,
knows a
Texas.
yeah.
I'm like,
Yeah.
I'm like, I'm not gonna take this shit from you. Like maybe if like whatever old JJek, contacts me, like sure, like, I guess, but. So they're kind of doing what I was doing already, but in like
I didn't know that.
Oh, it happens all the time. I can't even tell you how many times I've personally filtered out submissions like that, going like, why the fuck is Margaret from like Vancouver Island sending me this like immigrant story about this or that girl from like Yemen? Like, what does she have to do with this? Like, stop! Like, don't send me this. So
at least do something
yeah.
cool. Like Margaret could be writing a new series of Tom Clancy knockoff novels about being a Yemeni pirate.
Yeah. Like,
I just want some
give me
originality.
something fresh, Margaret. Like,
The Houthis are so hot right now.
Yeah.
Oh man, yeah, it's so interesting. I think you've raised a lot of interesting points, Jasper, over the course of our conversation. I think it's an exciting time to be creating art and trying to figure out this landscape of, I guess, like old institutions either dying or adapting, and the rise of new institutions on the internet, digital native ones, and also hybrids of the two. And yeah, just like seeing people trying to navigate that is fascinating. I've really enjoyed our conversation. I don't have any. I'm just conscious of how late it must be over there for Jasper, and we've been going for about 3 hours. So
Oh yeah, sorry,
I don't
Jasper.
have any
I will
major-
just keep talking. So
I don't have. Yeah, we're caffeinated up. It's only like 10 o'clock in the morning for us, so we're good to go for another 3 or 4 hours. But I just want to say, like, I don't have any major glaring talking points that I wanted to keep on asking Jasper about. Jack, did you have any other things?
no, nothing in particular. I just was wanting to say I'm looking forward to seeing how this world adapts, because I'm optimistic that people will still want art. They'll still want storytelling. They'll still want beauty in language. And so I'm interested to see how that desire eventually finds its way out into the world. We're in some strange transitional state now. It's not even a question.
Yeah, I'm with you. It's a very weird landscape we have in front of us. There's a lot of opportunity, but then there's a lot of also just kind of random hurdles that have been placed in front of us. So it kind of, more than ever before, tests your cleverness, and it tests your dedication to this. But I think anyone who's dedicated to writing poetry or prose or whatever they're particularly inclined toward can find a way forward. You might just have to risk becoming a bit of a villain for a little bit. Like, you got to be okay with playing that villain role, or you got to be okay with kind of going rogue and taking some chances. Start a Substack, join up with a small press. Who knows? But I don't want to see people get discouraged is all. I just want them to try.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's great. That's yeah, for sure.
yeah. If BH Fine can get poems published about Soy Man watching his wife give birth to Tyrone's baby, then you too can get your poems
God,
published.
that's shit.
So cool. I've really enjoyed chatting with you, Jasper. It's been a lot of fun. I hope that you've had fun as well.
Yeah,
at the top of the show,
sure.
or at the bottom of the show, or at the end, or the inside. I don't know where we're at now. My brain's fried. Where can people find your things? Where do you want to direct attention to, other than your social security number?
Canada.
Well, if you want to know the 3 numbers on the back of my credit card, I'll give you those. I guess the main place you can find Echo is Amazon at this point. They're still building the listing because it's so fresh. I don't even think the Jasper
By the time
name
this gets
is
published, it might be up.
Oh, okay, yeah. So yeah, Amazon, you can definitely find Echo. I'm looking to expand distribution with Noah. I'm going to ask for some advice and stuff in that regard. But Amazon mainly, as well. I'm opening up, like, if you just want like a digital copy of this, basically, you can contact me through the email address on the press's website. So it's just Jasper Ceylon at protonmail.com. Because some people just want it right away. The physical looks great. I'm really happy with the way it came out, but to save costs and shit. For whatever reason in Australia, the book is like fucking $38. I'm like, that's not what I set it to. So, Australian listeners,
everything is inexplicably more expensive here.
Yeah, it's so weird. I set it to like 17 because it like recommended like 22. I'm like, fuck no, why would I do that to the Australian people? Like, I'm like, there's no reason to. I try to price my things basically as low as possible.
A member of the standing committee of the Politburo in China probably sneezed and obliterated our economy for a few weeks. Happens periodically.
Yeah.
And is there an X account or a Substack as well associated with the Jasper Ceylon pen name and/or
Echolalia? Yeah, I'll probably be most active on Substack realistically because I'm not like a huge Twitter guy, but it's just Jasper Ceylon at Substack, so you can find all the links through that too.
And one more question about distribution and where people can go and find more. The publishing house, can you remind us the publishing house that you're now 2IC at, and if you want to plug them?
Yeah, sure. So that's Pereube, Pereube. And I'm going to be opening up the magazine portion of it probably next month. So we're going to accept submissions from, unsavory types and all that sort of stuff. People who would find this kind of stuff entertaining. But then also just any kind of poet who has something cool and fresh. We're looking for subs there for the magazine, and then I'm going to start accepting poetry manuscript submissions pretty soon too, to expand the press, to kind of live out this ideology. Let's see what comes our way. But if you're a dissident type poet or disgruntled or just doing something fresh or unique, send us that manuscript soon. I'll take a look.
Yeah. Bashar al-Assad couldn't get published anywhere else, but I'm really looking forward to him getting published with Pereube.
Yeah, I mean, I'm willing to take all comers here because I think we got a chance to do something new.
An immigrant who's had it tough.
He has had it tough. He got chucked out of his own country.
Chucked out of his own country by a bunch of ragtag dissidents.
Anyways. I'm
do you reckon he's now writing poetry under like a Ukrainian?
He's writing about the romance of drone warfare and stuff.
Yeah, that'd be sick.
Thanks, Jasper.
Sure, thanks for having me on, guys.
And for listeners, definitely pick up the Echolalia review. It's really good. Link will be in the show notes.
Go and get it. All right, get on the Discord, all the stuff. Yep. Thanks, guys.
Thank you.